Good evening, Yorktown, and welcome to the Town Board Work Session for July 14th, 2020. If you could all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America,
to the Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
is wrong.
Thank you. You would think I'd get used to saying the pledge over Zoom, but not quite, apparently. You'd all also please just join me for a moment of silence as we keep those who are battling COVID-19, not just in our community or in our region, but across the country, in our thoughts and prayers tonight.
I'd like to add for all over the world that God keep us all safe.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilman Patel. Thank you. Again, it's the work session meeting for July 14th. I'm Supervisor Matt Slater, joined by Councilmember Alice Roker, by Councilman Ed Lachterman, Councilman Tom Diana, by Councilman Vishnu Patel. We have our Town Clerk, Diana Quast. We have our Town Attorney, Adam Rodriguez. I see that we have our Town Highway Superintendent, Dave Paganelli. Also with us tonight, I see that we have our Town Engineer, Michael Quinn. We're going to begin tonight by convening a public hearing for a wetland permit application for Con Edison.
Would you like me to lead off on this?
Yeah, Mike, would you provide us with a briefing, please?
Okay. Con Ed is in the midst of a multi-year project to upgrade the gas lines in Yorktown. So this year's planned work is to install the 5,900 linear feet of 16-inch gas main. So essentially they're replacing the smaller diameter pipe with this larger pipe. It's all at their latest, safety measures as far as the pipe joining together. And this year's program is along Granite Springs Road, starting at the intersection with Gomer Street and extending up to Curry Street. So the work is within, some of the work is passing by New York State regulated wetlands. And so because they're working within the 100-foot buffer, they need to obtain a town wetlands permit. And essentially that's what they're here for tonight to request. All of the work that they're doing will be in the paved surfaces. So although it's within 100 feet of the wetland, everything will be confined within the paved surfaces. So there's no new impervious surfaces. And but because they're in that buffer, they are still required by our code to get this permit.
Mike, is there a reason that since it's in a multi-year project that we haven't done a general permit?
There isn't. I think that might be a good option for the board to consider. I know in the first year they did it, it was a little bit rocky along Gomer. But I think last couple of years, things have gone a lot smoother. There's a lot of coordination with my office and also with the highway department. So if the board would like to consider a general permit, which would basically be renewable annually, they would still be required to submit all the documents and the locations. We would certainly, publicize it so everyone's aware of what they're doing and when they're doing it. So that's definitely something the board might want to consider.
Why would they have to come back yearly? A general permit, I thought, was good for 5 years.
I meant a general permit requires them to provide an annual report to the town engineer. And, if there's any issues or problems, I could bring that to the town board. But general permit would not require them to come back to the town board. And that could be up to a 5-year general permit.
Highway
And then do we lose money by doing that, or it is only good for them?
Well, the conditions of the permit could certainly state, because I don't think Con Ed is looking to not pay the annual fee. So we could condition that they would pay that application fee every year. That's been done in the past.
Highway Superintendent Paganelli, your thoughts?
Well, I'll defer to Con Edison on this, but I think they may be done in Yorktown this year.
You're not even talking.
Pardon me?
Lips aren't moving.
His lips aren't moving again.
He's also not.
My lips aren't moving, but I have a short sleeve shirt on. Yes, I think that, having them be able to provide their reports and the town engineer review them, they are up to date on their street opening permit. So, I guess it would fall to, do they feel it's worth it if they're only going to be here this year or perhaps this year and next? I don't know, what the benefit for us and them would be. I guess it would depend on what the cost of the permit is.
Is anybody from Con Edison on the call?
Well, one of the good things, though, is when they come every year, they're able to lay out their where they're working, and the residents are aware of where they are in the street, and they do make a presentation.
Would we be able to make that as a condition of their if we did decide to go with the general permit?
I thought they had come in this year and given us,
They
I could be mistaken, but I believe they came in, gave us the meets and bounds in essence of what they were going to be doing.
Yeah.
They did provide a presentation earlier this year about what their project was.
That's what we like. They come in every year and do that.
And I'm sure we can condition that as part of the permit approval.
We could
And I
condition
think,
it as part of the street opening permit as well.
Dave, is it possible to let all the neighborhood people at least to put the sign from very beginning of the street to the end, that they know that these people are working and roughly where is the project, when will be finished in their own street? Because they always call or ask like that, and sometimes we don't know. If they ask me, they'll ask you. You probably know.
Yeah,
but if there is
I have a good idea of where they are and when they're going to be done in certain locations.
but the people, they are,
I know that they had done, I believe, and I could be wrong because I didn't actually see it, but I believe they had done notifications to the residents within a certain proximity of their work zone.
Oh, that's cool. Then.
Bear in mind, we have two different companies representing Con Edison in town. We have Danella, which has been working on the part on Hanover Street from Croton Heights Road through the center of town. And then we have Riggs Distler that have been working from the northern part of Gomer Street by Fairview down past the Gomer Deli, and now they have made a left on Granite Springs, and now they're past Ridge Street.
Dave, one question to you. If somebody asks me, are we going to get gas in our neighborhood? What will be the answer? Yes or no?
Well, that's an interesting question. As a matter of fact, Dan Ciarcia had brought it to, I believe, Matt and Margaret's attention with respect to the YCC being underfed with respect to gas. When we put in that gas generator there, we had to have a switch off it couldn't run the boiler and the generator at the same time, and that's a major problem if we lose power in the winter. So I had reached out to Con Edison at their behest and asked if there was any way we could, as they were tying in the service lines to the home, to the businesses, was there any way to increase the diameter of the service line, which would increase the flow and eliminate that shutoff. So I have not heard back yet, but the fellow was not very optimistic. So I guess the answer to your question is they are not actively soliciting gas customers. And my understanding is, in order for them to consider bringing gas to a home, I believe the first 100 feet or so is on them, and then the rest falls on the resident. And it could be multiple houses if there are 3 or 4 houses in a row that want to get gas. But they want you to turn your whole house over to gas, including your heating system. And I know Tommy could speak to that. I don't think it's a small task to reach that goal.
No, it definitely is not. And as I recall, when they were doing Gomer Street, Dave, and correct me if I'm wrong, like you said, the people did go out and ask them, could I switch over? Would they run the line in and stuff? And they said not until you had a firm commitment that you were willing to change everything that you had to have changed.
Dave, can you confirm whether Con Ed's project will conclude after this year?
Can I confirm it?
We do have someone from Con Edison on here, actually.
I believe they have a very good chance to be done by November this year. But again, it depends on if they run into problems. I mean, they're moving along quite nicely. The plastic pipe goes much quicker than the steel pipe, which has to be welded at every section and pressure tested. So that being said, at this point, they're working their way down east of Ridge Street on Granite Springs Road, and they're through town, which means they have to go down Route 35 to Broad Street and then come just past Brookside School and hook up there.
Right.
So there is a possibility they could finish this year. If not, certainly my guess would be next year at the latest.
Just to chime in a little bit there, there's Javier Franco. I'm a field engineer for Westchester.
How are you?
Con Edison. Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, thank you. What can you share with us tonight?
So as far as this project, the superintendent is correct in saying that this project we're projecting to finish it this year. We are installing plastic there instead of steel. It should move along rather quickly as far as joining the pipes and so forth. I just want to clear out the air as far as are we done in all of Yorktown this year? No, there will be other projects. Exactly where, we don't necessarily have that, but we have additional vintage pipes throughout the town that will need to be replaced. So to answer the earlier question about a multi-year agreement, we're definitely open to that. And any other condition that you guys feel that we need to put in place as far as presenting yearly and paying the yearly fee, we're totally open to that. But definitely a multi-year agreement we're definitely open to that because we do have other projects that will come along.
The only concern though is that we can't see what your next project looks like. I don't think we can do a permit for it. We would have to look at the project.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think that, we'll follow the same process that we have as far as applying for permits, whether that's environmental as well. Yes, you will see the scope of the project. And as far as, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to answer all the questions that came up throughout this conversation. I believe another question that came up was notifying residents in the vicinity of the project. And yes, we do have multiple contractors working in Yorktown, and one of the requirements we have for those contractors is to notify the residents 10 days prior to the project prior to the start of the project. And please let me know if that answers your question or any other questions that you may have.
Any other questions for Con Ed? From the board? No? No. By the way, I'm sorry, but if our town
I have
clerk,
a question.
Yes, I'm sorry, Highway Superintendent.
That's all right. I'm sorry to jump on like that. For the engineer from Con Ed, just for clarification for our residents, you deem any pipe that's older than, was it 1972, I think? I could be wrong, to be leak prone, and this is a proactive measure you're taking to ensure the safety of our residents, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I just think people need to know because sometimes it's a bit inconvenient for them. And, at the end of the day, we certainly don't want to see, a catastrophe because we didn't want to be inconvenienced. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Anytime.
They are only replacing the 16-inch only, or there are smaller section with a smaller diameter?
So there is an existing 8-inch steel main, and what we're doing, we're putting a new 16-inch main and cutting out and abandoning the old 8-inch pipe. So it's only one pipe going back in.
Okay.
Right, they're abandoning the old pipe in place rather than tear it out. So that's also why one of the reasons on Granite Springs Road, we at Highway have been waiting. We've got about 250, 300 feet of drainage to do there. And unfortunately, or fortunately, as it is, that this is getting done, our drainage is directly above Con Edison's high pressure gas main. So, we'll wait until they, test the new lines, vacate the line that they're in, and probably somewhere around October or November, we'll be able to do that drainage work once they've abandoned that line.
Excellent.
Yes, at that point, that will be construction debris once we abandon that pipe.
Great. And I do want to point out that our town clerk, Diana Quast, did show the notice of this hearing just a few moments ago. With that being said, do we have any comments from the public on the wetland permit application?
I had a request for someone to speak, but they have not come on yet.
Okay. Well, they can still submit written comment if they don't, if they do not make it in time. I would say to the board, I welcome your discussion on this. I would say we issue the wetland permit for this year and next year, because again, if the plan is to complete this project as it stands, we can do it through this wetland permit. And then if you have additional projects that you can bring before the town next year, then we can discuss a general permit, which would be a multi-year with the conditions that the town board has articulated this evening. So again, if there's no other comments from the public, any questions from the board?
Nope.
So then I would entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
First, with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Hearing is closed. And you want to entertain a motion to issue the wetland permit?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. So then
Thank you.
Again, Con Ed, if you could next year, once you identify more projects, I think the board would be amenable to providing a multi-year permit with conditions as we've discussed here tonight.
That sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Good night. Thank you.
Members of the public who may not have been able to speak, you can still submit written comment on the application. We're going to move forward to our next agenda item, and that's a media presentation by Thompson and Bender. We have with us Jeff Thompson. We have with us, I see Liz Thompson. We've got Jeff Bender. We see Sergio Esposito, president of the Yorktown Chamber of Commerce. And we also see other members of Thompson and Bender. Val's on. And do we have Bob?
Elizabeth and Jeff.
Hi, Liz. How are you? Jeff, how are you?
Hello.
Great. I see Dean.
Hello.
Excellent. And as a reminder to everyone, so this is part of our Reboot Yorktown task force. This is one of the things that was born out of that was an economic development campaign media presentation, and we had an initial presentation from Thompson and Bender. The board was able to provide some, I think, very good feedback, and they have redesigned as well as re-engaged with members of the task force. And I think that the board should be very excited to see what we're going to be presenting tonight. And so I'm going to turn it over to our friends at Thompson and Bender.
Okay, well, Matt and the board, thank you for hosting us again tonight. And Bob and Sergio, hello. We've been working on this for quite a while now. In the beginning of the presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about where we've been with this so far, because there has been a lot of communication that we've done regarding economic development in the town that I think has worked quite well and put the town in the forefront in Westchester County among municipalities of what's going on. So in terms of rebooting, et cetera. So I think this is all good. I'm going to let Liz walk you through the program itself, and then we can pick up for questions, discussion, whatever afterwards. So thank you. And Adam, hello.
Excellent. Liz?
Welcome, everyone. And Valerie is going to start sharing her screen, and we're going to walk you through the deck. And just echoing what Jeff said, we actually did take a lot of direction from our last meeting from you, have refined the presentation, and come back to you with your changes, and hopefully you'll be happy with what you see. So we're going to walk you through the Economic Development Marketing Plan, and we'll begin with the next slide, which talks about the goal. And the goal here is to position Yorktown as a community that is open for business with streamlined processes in place. And our target audience overview is business owners and executives who live in Westchester and who are looking for suburban satellite offices. I'll just pause here for a second. There was a major story, we mentioned this last time, in the Wall Street Journal about how businesses in Manhattan, in New York City actually, are actively looking for satellite offices, specifically in Westchester County and Long Island, because their employees who live in those suburban areas do not want to take mass transit into downtown Manhattan or New York City anymore.
Right.
So that is a really good opportunity for us. Also, real estate developers, both those based in Westchester and regionally, and of course, commercial real estate brokers who are out there looking for new sites for their clients. Our geography is, as I mentioned, New York City and Westchester County, and the timing would be to launch this campaign August 3rd and have it run right through November. Here's an overview of our plan. First, communicate to those target audiences that I just mentioned that Yorktown offers streamlined municipal approval processes, shovel-ready sites with zoning in place, development locations that have pre-approved zoning in key locations throughout the town, also a wide variety of existing retail, warehouse, and office locations,
right,
and waiver permit fees through 2020. Also, from a media strategy point of view, based on our budget to be most effective, we've decided to focus our media strategy on 4 major areas. 1, digital advertising, paid social media advertising, direct mail, out of home, and signage. I'm going to walk you through the first part of the plan, which is the communications and PR rollout. And I know Jeff and I wanted to mention here that we are already working with you on a very effective communications plan. But what we're recommending for the launch of this campaign is, a major announcement where we would unveil our new marketing campaign to the media. We'd also then continue to unveil news stories and communications about business growth and about business relocation and about new businesses moving into Yorktown. And then we'd also spotlight new businesses in our monthly town newsletter and promote it on social media. I'm going to show some examples now of communications in the next slide that we have done for you already and that we would continue through this process. Here's an example of a story that ran in the Examiner on Reboot Yorktown, and that was a really successful press conference. Then, a story on the restaurants opening for business. Another example in the next slide in LoHud.com showed a great story on new home improvement showroom that was going to be opening. That's a great rendering that we sent out to the media. And in the next slide, another LoHud story on the Yorktown Planning Board is approved the Nestle Waters distribution site, which is a great message and a great story. And then again in Westchester Fairfield Business Story, Fairfield Business Journal rather picked up that story as well, which is a great shout out to Yorktown and the growth opportunities to businesses here. So now I'm going to show you the campaign designs, the actual creative that you all selected out of our last presentation. And that was, we showed you a number of campaign approaches, and you all selected Destination Y. And here is our logo that we've created for Destination Y. And this is going to become our branding for this new campaign that we will kick off hopefully in August, with a tagline slogan of Yorktown, up where you belong.
Like,
Speaking to those businesses that are in southern Westchester and down in the city about moving up and looking north.
mhm.
You like that, Alice?
I do.
Oh, good. Up where you belong, Yorktown. And now I'm going to show you 3 sample ads. These are not the actual ads, because what we're going to do is, once it's approved, we're going to go out and we're going to take actual photos of sites that are available right now to businesses looking to relocate and expand. But we're going to focus on some Class A office space that you see here. And our headline is Yorktown, Something's Happening Here. And here's just some sample copy. Discover what IBM, Nestle Waters, UPS, and Paramount already know. Yorktown is accessible, affordable, and ready to put your business on the fast track with expedited approvals, shovel-ready sites, permit zoning, and diverse commercial sites from office to warehouse. Yorktown, find out what's happening here. And then our tagline, and then the call to action with a phone number. Our next ad would spotlight perhaps an interior site of, a cool office space. Here we just picked a picture of a loft space. And again, promoting the fact that Yorktown, something's happening here with our destination-wide branding. And then the third example I'm just showing you is an empty warehouse, again, showing the diversity of space. And again, these would be actual locations in our digital advertising and social media ads. So those are the ads and some of the sample copy and how we position the branding. On our next slide, we're going to show you how we might use our direct mail media strategy. We have an extensive list of commercial real estate brokers in the New York metro market. And we are recommending doing a large size postcard that would be mailed to these commercial real estate brokers, creating a top of mind awareness about Yorktown as a place to relocate their clients. Here we're talking about the message that's going to resonate with them. Looking to give your business some breathing room? Look north to Yorktown. And again, we'd have copy on the back about the diversity of commercial space and how to get in touch with us, but again, top of mind. And we do a series of these cards talking about the really strong points that Yorktown offers to these New York City-based companies.
Lower Westchester.
And Lower Westchester, correct. Our next slide shows you where we would be driving these people. So we are going to direct everyone to our special URL. And our URL is our landing page address, which is Valerie. We've kicked around a bunch of URLs, and we looked at what URL addresses were available for us. And the one that is available, Valerie is going to share with you now, is
destinationy.org.
Okay.
We would create the special landing page, and on the landing page, we would have photographs of who to contact, phone numbers, titles, make it easy for people to contact the right people to make things happen. And we'd have examples of the different locations that were available. And we would keep this current and have a capture page that you see below, which is that blue page, where we'd actually, if someone did want to pick up the phone and call, we would actually ask them to maybe fill out this contact sheet on the website and send it in. So then we could capture the information and communicate with them. So we're giving them every opportunity to connect with us. So that's where we're driving all of this business and all of this activity. And on the next slide, you're going to see what we talk about when we refer to out of home. And what we're recommending to win the hearts and minds of the people who live in Yorktown and get them excited about this is to create a series of banners on light poles throughout the town. And our message is Destination Y, Yorktown, up where you belong, again, with our URL, destinationy.org. And what we're going to talk about here is why Destination Y is a great place to live, to work, and to play, to shop and to dine. And we think we can really have a lot of fun with these banners, spreading them all around the town in key central locations, and again, winning the hearts and minds of the Yorktown residents and getting them excited about the campaign. And finally, signage. And what we would do is create window clings that we would give to restaurants, to coffee shops, to all types of businesses, you know, hair salons, supermarkets, liquor stores, anybody who's got a business in Yorktown, and encourage them to put a window cling in their window. And from a social media perspective, you know, create a hashtag Destination Y. And hashtag Destination Y, we could be tagging businesses, growing our social media buzz, really building a very, very solid social media campaign throughout the town. And my next slide is just an example of how we would then incorporate the branding into our digital newsletter, where we would every month spotlight a new business that may have moved into the village, rather the town, and spotlight them, or a new vacancy that's available. And so we build that branding throughout all of our communication. And finally, what I want to say to you is that this campaign that you selected, as I said originally, has legs. And what do I mean by that? I mean that this campaign has the ability to expand beyond just the business focus we have in the beginning. It can move into tourism, it can move into commercial shopping and dining, and promote Yorktown. And we just gave some examples of tourism. We showed the bike path. We could run something in the fall about coming to our great farms and our great parks. And here's just an example of how we would promote great dining in the area. So what I mean is this has ability to continue for years beyond this initial start. Destination Y, something's happening here. Yorktown, up where you belong. And that's our presentation. I'm going to show you some of the budget points right now. And we broke out the budget in our next slide. We're going to show you how we are going to use digital advertising, direct mail, the landing page, paid social media, and PR to really get our message out there to our correct target audience. This is our marketing mix. And this is the way we're going to spread those dollars in a really effective and efficient way for you through PR, which is no charge, but the website, the paid social, digital advertising, the direct mail postcard to 2,800 commercial real estate brokers. And the grand total is a little over $40,000 for what it's going to cost to do this in the media. And the next slide is our final slide, but it's the most important, I think. And this is, so what would success look like evaluate at the end of the day, how did this campaign do? And what we are going to do is present to you monthly metrics reports. And here are our key performance indicators, our KPIs. How many clicks did we get to that landing page? How many people did we speak to where the message resonated and they decided to take that effort to click through and go to our site? I will also, of course, be measuring how many calls that we receive as a result of that. And then we're going to measure the metrics on paid social media as well. And we're going to show how many people engaged with these ads, what were our total impressions, meaning how many eyeballs actually saw these ads, and then, you know, what were the click-throughs to our website. And frankly, there is a rule of thumb for a successful campaign, which is 0.07% of all your advertising. And if we can exceed that, then I think we will have succeeded and building awareness for Yorktown and driving the right people to our site. So we're going to be presenting you these metrics on a monthly basis and evaluating how the campaign is doing. And hopefully getting those calls and getting those people aware of all the great things that Yorktown has to offer as Destination Y.
I'd just like to add one last thing before we turn it over to you guys to ask us any questions you have. There's a psychological impact for the residents of the town. The overall vibe here is of a town moving forward, doing things, being excited about itself, and I think it's contagious. I really do. And I think this is going to be good for Yorktown overall, not just for leasing space and finding new uses, which of course we all need. But the whole thing here, I think when the residents sort of see what's going on here, hopefully they're all going to be excited. Thank you.
So thank you, and we'll open it up to questions.
I got to tell you, I think you guys really put together a fantastic presentation. You threw some new ones at us, which was really exciting. The flags and the decals, we didn't see those before, but I thought those were terrific. I also want to bring in, we do have other members of the task force with us. We have Bob Giordano of the YSBA and Sergio Esposito of the Chamber of Commerce. Welcome your comments and thoughts before we turn it over to the board real quick. As our business leaders, I'm curious what you all or you both think of the presentation.
As far as the banners go, I think it's fantastic because we really need to educate our residents and consumers in town. So to get them excited about what's happening is really a big win if we're successful at doing that.
Mm-hmm. I really like the key points on the banners. It seemed to hit really all the areas of interest that we really want to drive out there and in our own town. I think the presentation is something that's really done well. We really need to start marketing outside of Yorktown. Just so this way we could grab some of the people that are flocking up north and expand our business base. And I think this will do it. And it'll do it in a nice way. It does it very professionally. You can't get better than destinationy.org, which is a really cool domain name to have. I mean, it's easy, it's simple. It's not some acronym that nobody's going to remember. Everybody knows how to spell destination. It's really, trust me. My domain name is comprehensivecomputers.com. I get into trouble a lot with the word comprehensive, but I think destination is easier to spell.
Yeah.
Anyway, but no, honestly, all joking aside, it's really quick. It's easy. It's Destination Y. I mean, hey, come on, let's do it. And I like the color scheme. If that's the color scheme that we're going with, I really like the color scheme. And the banners really knocked it out of the park.
That was a really great touch. The other thing I just want to make sure the board understands, when TMB came back to the task force, they actually presented it was 4 thematics.
No, till 28.
It was 4 thematics that we were presented with, and the task force as a whole really recognized the Destination Y potential. And again, as Liz had mentioned, it goes much further than just economic development. I mean, it's going to be much further. And so we're going to be able to really, assuming our success in this, be able to branch out beyond just economic development to arts and culture, which we're going to talk about later, to so many other attributes of this town, to give us that ability to highlight it and be proud of it and share it with so many other people in the tri-state area, depending on which direction,
everything above my head.
Any questions from the board for Team B?
I have a comment.
Or comments, yes.
Comment, and it's wow. I haven't been so excited about the presentation displaying Yorktown in I don't know how long. I don't think I've seen that kind of presentation for a very long time. I am excited. I'm excited just as a resident to be living here. You caught me with your visuals. You've got everything in your package that I think will attract people to look. And I don't know, I love it. I love it.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you.
Councilman Lachman or Councilman Diana, any thoughts? Councilman Patel? I know Councilman Patel's on the phone. I don't know if he saw it, but Councilman Lachman or Councilman Diana?
Yeah, I had a question. So with the window clings, I think that's a great idea. Is there any way to maybe put like a QR code on there and like have a site that you could map out for people visiting?
Oh, I'm sure we could figure that out,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we could figure that out for sure.
Yeah.
We can figure out a way to incorporate a QR code on their phone through social media where they have it and they can just go in.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
Take it to the site and you can sort of map.
Right.
Yeah,
Great idea, Councilman.
We've always gone with Yorktown green. I thought the banners might want to be that green color with the Y, like the design on the
lamppost there.
No, Bobby, we want to give them something new.
Yeah,
something
let's go with
new.
something new. I think we go with something new. Also, not
I don't know.
I also get concerned because green is a
I know.
Bobby, you're an Okie from Shabokie. I don't want people on the north side of town to think that we're not respecting our friends in the Lakeland School District if it's just green.
You got a point there. All right, let's make it yellow and green.
And I think that my fellow Huskers are going to feel a little slighted on that too. So
Nah, the heck with them.
I think a neutral color would be
Have we already secured destinationy.org as a domain name?
Yes.
Yeah.
Valerie's got it.
great.
Excellent.
Thanks, Val. That's fantastic.
Excellent.
And one question I have is your vision was for the banners to be in the 5 hamlets.
Yeah, I would, that's for you all to approve, where they can be, but the idea was, yes, we spread these throughout.
Yeah, Bob, I think that would be what we should do.
Yes, I agree.
I agree. Absolutely.
Route 6 to 235 and in the middle of the town here.
Yep.
All to be covered, 3 of them.
Pull it all together.
I think it would be great. Any other comments or questions from board members on this? There being none, I think that we can if there's no other discussion, then we can discuss moving it forward either tonight or next week as part of our regular town board meeting where we can pass the resolution and we can have our town attorney prepare that resolution.
Look, I think, just to chime in, I think it's really the sooner the better. Even a week earlier is better. The kind of wave where people are kind of migrating out of the city and up north is kind of like now. It actually started when we first came to the board with the presentation, and then we had to go back and revamp it, and I'm glad we did. I just, that took time, and I think you guys should really consider moving this forward.
I agree with you, Sergio. I think the time period from when they want to start the campaign to now requires us to do it now.
Can I just ask on the mailing, the 2,000 on the mailing? Do we feel that one mailer is sufficient? Because I'm not, or is it better reinvested into some of the other aspects of the campaign?
Well, I'm going to just say that, I'll be honest with you. We added the banners on and the window clings on as a separate thing, and we really didn't budget for those. So I agree with you, Matt. What we typically do with our commercial real estate clients is we send those postcards out once a month, every month.
Yeah.
And to just hit them once, I'm not sure. And to your point, we might be better off taking that money and investing it in the banners and the window clings.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense, frankly, than just one mailer.
Yeah, the only problem, Matt, is what will the banners and the window clings do towards the rental of the property? It's two different things.
Well, no, but I think from what Liz said earlier, it's also about making sure that the people of the town are invested and excited.
They're your best ambassadors.
Yeah.
They are, as Matt said, they are your best ambassadors. You want them to get excited. And we were struggling with, and when Bob Giordano and Sergio were saying, we don't want to forget about our hometown people here, you know, we were struggling with how do we do that in an effective way, and I think this is the best way to do it.
I also think maybe we can come up with.
And I think to Ed's point, you know, I think it's balanced more where the outreach is more than the local stuff. The local is really to build a buzz. But I think you guys, I mean, if you had to put a percentage on it, I think there's a higher percentage of the activity that's going to be trying to get people in from the outside than building the buzz on the inside. I think it's properly balanced. But to Ed, Councilman Lackerman's point, he made a good point. I mean, you know, the idea is to try to bring businesses in, bring people in, you know, and then you could expand this also into people coming up and living here. You know.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Sergio. And I just want to say one other thing on that landing page, what we could start to do with the hashtag of, you know, hashtag Destination Y, we could, if you start to get your local businesses to feel good about this, and we tag them in social media, and we get, you know, through Facebook and Instagram, and we get them to share it with their customers and clients, it creates a really, as Jeff said, excitement. And we could add to the landing page a directory of businesses that are part of our hashtag Destination Y, and just start growing that. And when people go to destinationY.org, they're learning about available space, but they're also finding out about our existing businesses that are there that they can support.
There also may be a way of through contacts that we have, Dean. I'm thinking of, you know, we know a lot of commercial brokers. We could push a little tour and, you know, come up and have a day where they come up and, you know, drive them around and show them some stuff to kind of just try to spur some interest that way.
I mean, yeah, I'd love to host. I mean, we talked about this before COVID, hosting a commercial open house in town.
Maybe we do it.
Oh, I forgot about COVID.
But maybe we do it virtually.
You could do it virtually.
We could do it virtual.
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea.
Gee, if we did that, we might even get Chris O'Callaghan to show up. That's an inside joke.
And also, shamelessly, I'd also like to see, you know, links to both the Chamber of Commerce and the Small Business Association.
Absolutely.
And you let us handle the interior kind of buzz businesses, because we're already doing that, you know.
You're right.
I agree 100%, Serge. I think the YSBA and the Chamber have to be.
We'll just do a link to you guys.
That's really well said.
I have to tell you something, Liz. I think that this there are some businesses that may not be part of either of the two groups. What this might cause them to do to get excited about where they are, to either start advertising somewhere, which again is wonderful for us, or I'm a member of the Chamber or the Small Business Association. I think this is a win-win all over.
Agreed.
Alice, to your point, a couple of years back, I was studying and trying to identify how many businesses were in town, and we came up with a number of 1,200 to 1,400, and we looked at, you know, what the Chamber and the Small Business Association had in its membership, which all are not necessarily local Yorktown businesses. So there's a big number of businesses out there that, for whatever their reason, they've chosen not to join either organization, and there's a number of them out there that join both of us. So there's a big pocket out there of businesses that are not members.
I think it can excite people.
Yeah.
They may want to find out more about the place they're either working in or.
Right.
But I think this is a win-win for the town.
The only other two things I just wanted to add quickly were last week, I believe it was, Jeff and Liz, last week, town of Cortland rolled out a similar, not similar in messaging, but an advocacy campaign like this for their own community. I think it's very important that the town of Yorktown make sure that we are competing with our neighbors. And so, you know, I think it makes it that much more important. And secondly, and the board knows this, and we've been very upfront with the town about this, we need to generate revenue. We need to generate revenue in the time of COVID, more now than ever. Otherwise, the only other option we have is taxes, which is something that none of us want to go see and do. And so this is going to help us generate revenue to cover the loss of revenue that we've seen from COVID, and also help us move forward as a community and enhance our community and strengthen us financially in the face of a pandemic. So I just wanted to make those 2 points because I think they're equally as important as we move this forward.
Well, look, this is really the presentation, the colors, it's alive. You know, it's alive. It looks like you know, I always use the example of people who have these websites that never get updated. You go to the website and the business just looks like it's flat, right? So this looks like we're in the game. You know, we're doing this. We're in the game. It looks, you know, it just looks alive, and it looks like we're here. And there are people here. You know, there are actually people in Europe not doing things.
Energetic. We have our new website that's up and running as well, and now to pair it with this, I just think it's another step forward. And again, competing with neighboring communities, I think it is just critically important for us as well.
And Cortland, to that point, Matt, Cortland is one example. There's 46 municipalities in Westchester. We're competing with 45 of them.
Correct. 100%, Bob. And Yonkers also launched a similar campaign. I think last week they did one for restarting their local businesses. So again, it's just a forward-thinking process and a forward-thinking idea for us to execute. And so if the board's got no more comment or question, make a motion that authorizing the supervisor to enter into an amendment of the contract with Thompson and Bender, not to exceed the amount of, what was it, $40,000, Liz? Was that
$40,700?
$40,700, and I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
We have a second? Second. Any second?
Are they here?
Hello.
They're not.
I think we lost.
The second this year?
Yes.
Second from Councilman Patel. All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
We're good.
Any abstain?
Thank you.
All right. Motion passes unanimously and carries.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
We're really excited to work with you.
Very excited about this. Thank you.
There too. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you. By the way, I just really want to thank the entire Reboot Yorktown Task Force. This is just another thing that we've been able to identify and execute on, and we're very, very thankful for Thompson and Bender, your entire team, for being such a great resource for our town. So I do want to thank you all for all you've done during the pandemic and what we're going to continue to do for the town of Yorktown. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Good night.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Night.
Okay. So next on the agenda, we're going to bring in it's still John Tegeter Day? Where'd he go?
Oh, no, that's over.
Oh, you sure?
Yeah.
All right, Director of Planning, John Tegeter. We also have with us, is Swarnoff Pajari with us?
Hey, everyone.
Hello, Swarnoff.
How are you?
Hello.
Swarnoff, as everyone, for those who don't know, is chair of the Climate Smart Communities Task Force, which we initiated this year and has been doing great work as a task force. And so tonight we're going to be reintroducing the amendments to Chapter 300 entitled Solar Power Generation Systems and Facilities. John, would you like to present those amendments, please?
Excuse me?
Would you like to present the amendments and brief the board? Thank you.
I will be as quick as I can with them. They are fairly limited from what was presented the last time, meaning a year or so ago when it first came out. And I will start by describing to you that some of the additions are some definitions. Added a definition of a BACA, added a definition of accessory use, added alternating and direct current under the existing ground-mounted solar energy system definition. There was a couple of words that were added there. It starts out saying solar energy system that is anchored to the ground. I added or supported on a foundation. It goes on to say and attached to a pole. I added also to a column. And then it's also detached from any other structure. I added that it's for the purpose of producing electricity for on-site, I added or off-site consumption. The definition of large-scale solar energy system was modified. It is one that now, instead of produce or exceeds 12 kilowatts, it was per hour, it is now 20 kilowatts, DC, direct current, as rated by its nameplate capacity. And the reason for that is a better way to state what type of and size of system it is, rather than kilowatt hours or the amount of energy it actually produces. So this is a nameplate capacity or a rating. Also, the size of them is up to 1 megawatt AC. That used to be per hour. Now it is AC on a parcel area. I took out parcel on an area of land no larger than 10 acres. Number 2 is over 1 megawatt, but not to exceed 5 megawatts AC on an area of land no larger than 20 acres. 5 megawatts was modified to be consistent with what the state allows, and the state now allows up to 5 megawatts AC into a grid from a solar farm or large-scale system. Added a definition of lot coverage, added a definition of main use, also added a definition of principal use, which I'm making a distinction there. Main use is the list of allowable uses in a given zone. Principal use is whatever main use you have selected that is the dominant use on the site. There's a little distinction there that I purposely made because it helps make the distinction with the solar arrays, whether they are accessory to a main use or whether or not they are a large scale main use on the same site with a commercial entity. Small scale energy system was modified from being a system that produces more than 12 kilowatts per hour of energy to a system that does not exceed more than 20 kilowatts DC as rated by its nameplate. Again, that is what I have been advised is a better way to explain and regulate the size of these systems. It was also went up from 12 to 20 because as the systems are more efficient, the 20 kilowatt system up to 20 watt and over 12 is becoming more common on smaller areas and smaller installations. Under applicability, I just added some clarification under D, which is where it says small scale solar energy systems. It now is clarified as a roof mounted small scale solar energy system. Under ground mounted solar energy systems, under 2, I added, it was setback, I added setback and height, and I modified it to reflect that the height regulations are 15 feet in residential and 20 feet in all other zones. That is consistent with our height restrictions for accessory structures now. The next one, 3, I added some language in there about principal and accessory uses that I explained a minute ago. And it basically says that ground-mounted solar panels shall be included in total lot coverage. I added and shall not exceed 50% of the area of, which was an addition, the lot, inclusive of all principal and accessory structures on the lot as required by the underlying zone. Under the paragraph approval standards for large-scale solar systems as a main use permitted by special permit, under the first paragraph, large-scale solar energy systems, they were allowed only in R1, R2, and R3. They are now in all zoning districts. Many people had commented that they would like to see them more in commercial and non-residential areas, so this gives that opportunity, not to mention the fact that it's very conceivable, we know now, that a large-scale solar energy system can exist on a parking lot or on a rooftop of a large building and be over that 20 kilowatt nameplate capacity. We've seen one come in, the IBM that you've seen is a 4 megawatt facility. Now it is over a 10-acre parking lot, but nevertheless, it can happen. You know, think of the mall and some other large scale installations. It goes on to say that this is in addition that large scale solar energy systems are not permitted as a sole principal use on properties within non-residential zones. While it may not in this case be an accessory use or small scale energy system, it still will not be allowed as a sole use on, say, a vacant commercial piece of property. Reason being that is I don't believe that it is appropriate, and this obviously is for discussion amongst the board members, that a vacant piece of commercial property should be turned over to a solar farm in our hamlets, which we prize as and take care of in terms of their visual quality. Under special use permit standards, I added clarifying language about the heights again, and that speaks to the 15 feet in residential zones and the 20 feet in all other zones. It says I added roof mounted systems shall be limited to the height requirements of the underlying zone, except that panels installed on flat roofs must be installed so they are not visible or suitably screened. In that same section under lot coverage, I added at the end where a solar energy system is not the principal use of the site, lot coverage may exceed that of the underlying zone, but in no case shall exceed 50%, including all principal and accessory structures on the lot as required by the underlying zone. Next paragraph, under what was large-scale solar energy systems, I added ground-mounted. So it says all ground-mounted large-scale solar energy systems shall be enclosed by fencing. And that goes on a little bit. I added at the end, fencing for ground-mounted systems that function as canopies or carports above parking areas may not be required, provided the planning board determines the visual and aesthetic impacts to the surrounding area is not significantly adversely affected. 2 paragraphs down under landscape screening and buffering, I added after the second sentence, large-scale solar energy systems shall be fully screened from adjacent residential properties, streets, or roads on which it fronts or is visible from, and any other views in which the planning board determines is necessary. Views from adjacent commercial properties shall be minimized to the extent reasonably practicable and screened from streets or roads on which it fronts. Screening of systems that function as canopies or carports above parking areas may not be required, provided the planning board determines the visual and aesthetic impacts to the surrounding area is not significantly adversely affected. Screening and buffering may be accomplished using architectural features, earth berms, landscaping, or other screening methods that will harmonize with the character of the property and surrounding area. And that is the extent of the modifications from last year's iteration. And so if you want to talk further on it, or if Warnoff talk a little bit.
Hey, John, if I could.
Yep.
I like a lot of things you did in there. The one thing that, in my opinion, should be eliminated in that is ground mounted in residential areas. It's unsightly, quite frankly, in my opinion. Roof mounting of the particular structures, it's white noise, so to speak. You don't see it. But to sit on your back deck, per se, and to have to look at a structure other than a shed where you put your lawnmower or something like that, that is normally in that particular type of area, in my opinion, it's distasteful.
We might have some already in town, Tommy.
Yeah, we do, but that's before we had a law that would prohibit it.
But wouldn't that be taken care of with the screening requirement, John?
Yeah, you wouldn't see it.
Well, if you put up on your deck and these are 15 feet down from you, you're going to see them. I just don't agree with having them in a residential area on a half-acre lot or an acre lot. or something like that.
Yeah,
yes,
I
ma'am.
need.
I'm sorry, Vishnu. Go ahead.
Screening. John, can you answer the screening?
I'm sorry.
The field home, there's a field home street over there. There was a doctor. He had a house, and this is the smaller lot. Half of the lot is covered in the ground mount solar, and the guy was really mad. He's a heart surgeon. He said, "I'm going to move out of there, and I'm going to sue and all these things." And I don't know what happened there, but the guy has made it larger solar cell than actually the square footage of his home. So, and then he said, every time I go in any room, all I see is a solar cell, solar panel in my backyard. So ground mount has to be somehow restricted or modified or under supervision of the planning board and like that, how it is shielded from neighbors and like that.
And that's what it does, though, John, correct?
Yeah, it does do that. It does do that. I want to make the distinction between using it as an accessory use on an existing home as a ground mounted in your backyard will be harder to screen because the lots will be smaller. So that is an issue that I understand, and I think that's what you're speaking to, Tom.
Yeah.
The other situation would be a vacant, larger parcel that happens to be in a residential zone where a landowner wants to do a standalone larger system in which there is greater ability and opportunity to screen adequately. I'm not sure that you're talking about those, right?
No, I am not. It's just
Okay.
the ones where you're putting it in a development of a half-acre lot per se. I'm just using a number.
Yes.
You just want to outlaw them completely, is that it?
What's that?
You just want to outlaw it completely. You can't do it on a small lot, a quarter acre, half acre.
Yeah, your quarter acre, half acre, 1 acre lots where, it takes up half of the backyard, so to speak,
But you already have some of those in the town. So what do you do with those?
Exactly. But we also didn't have a law at that point when they were put up and they were allowed in. I didn't like them then, but
But you would have to grandfather them now.
yeah, they'd have to be grandfathered in.
But why? But John, what couldn't we provide the same language and mandate proper screening?
You could. You could do that. Of course you could.
But limit the volume of the panel, how much ground panels you are putting in.
Right.
So that's just
Yes, Vishnu, you're correct. And I want to point out that this law, when it's an accessory use and a smaller scale system, it can only be the type, the amount of energy that can be used at the main use. So it can only be an accessory use. So in other words, you couldn't do a large scale solar system in your backyard and just connect it into the grid and have a developer lease it from you.
Right.
And we can strengthen the language to that effect as well. If that's a concern.
I have another question, like many of the homes are older homes and newer homes mixed in. So older home person, if he puts a solar cell and then he wants to sell the house, and the guy comes in and he wants to do the renovation and all that, will it affect the value of the property when you sell it? Whether because this guy want to do everything renovation, and then all the solar cell, what he put it in 5 years ago or something, they are no good,
The solar cells will last more than 5 years. They're
No,
probably
but you want to do the renovating your roof or something like that, then they're going to have to take it out and put it back. There is the additional expense, and that will be, difficult for the seller or buyer. Somebody say, I don't want a solar or something, or I need a bigger home,
No,
So are these affect the value of the property,
Well, we can't predict the future.
Well, what happens is, and I think Swarnoff can correct me here if I'm wrong, but I believe that if you have a solar installation that goes on your roof, it has to be a roof that still has 20 to 25 years life in it, or you're getting a new roof before you get the solar installation. I think that's how it works.
Yeah, no developer is going to come to your home and install anything unless your roof is warranted for at least 20 years. In certain cases, people have put it off as long as the roof has a 10-year life on it. But usually the roof renovations are done at the time of the installation as well.
Right, for obvious reasons. Just exactly what you said, Vishnu.
Yeah, because the roof costs a lot of money, So
of course.
Somebody is selling it and you want to increase the value of his property. It's a good thing to do. And I hope that we all have a solar, one way or the other. So all the schools, but John, there is a question like Jefferson Valley Mall is beautifully done on the roof. But if they want to commercially, put more in a parking lot, then car, going through the, some of the area where car goes in and out, how they can, keep the heights, because the truck comes in, goes in there, and so everything has to be clear, right? Just like, you park the car and nobody goes in between,
Yeah,
So
well, in residential zones, you will not be able to do the carports that will accommodate the passage of trucks because the height will restrict you. In commercial zones, you will be able to do that because the 20-foot maximum will afford you at the low end about 13.5 feet, which will allow the typical large tractor trailer to pass.
We had this conversation with IBM with regards to their project as well, I believe, right, John?
Correct.
But that, the IBM, they have a front separate road and then a back separate road and then a front and a rear front, both. There are three entrance and exit where they can go in and out. Actually, altogether 4, But the smaller building like a school and all that, if they want to do you think they will be able to do someday in a school? Because, if they have some parking lot, they can generate their own electricity. And that means lower taxes and, save energy.
But I mean, the question was posed both to IBM and also when we were discussing it for Granite Knolls when we had Doug Hertz here. Also discussed up at Granite Knolls because Granite Knolls is going to need to get some trucks through that area, and there's also some safety issues that we needed to make sure were addressed as well, such as a fire engine, if there's a car fire or something like that, to make sure that a fire engine would be able to get through. And we were sure in cases that the height of the panels wouldn't deter that from happening.
Right.
And the width, in the parking area, some of the width has to be slightly bigger, so the big truck can go in and out too for the delivery like that.
Yeah, as far as
it's a wonderful thing, John. A very nice review, and you have made a good progress.
Just one other comment pursuant to yours, Vishnu, is that as far as schools are concerned, they are all in residential zones, and they are not subject to our zoning laws. So I don't think this regulation or any of ours would necessarily pertain to them.
So
John, I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The property that Councilman Patel was bringing up before, I had gone a couple times to look at it. So this was a property where the array was built in the backyard, but the problem with it was that it was downhill of the. So that's why it was hugely visible. So.
Oh.
Okay. And I'm not sure, in that case, whether it's just denied because he can't do the screening properly or not.
He had a very large number of panels, not just, I don't know whether he wanted to sell it or not, but it's not just for personal use,
Actually, for that size, I think he had 32 panels, and for house size, that would be probably appropriate. I have 26 on mine. So it was probably appropriate to generate the electricity for that house alone.
Yeah, and by the way, and Swarnoff can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that in order to get the best NYSERDA rebate or discount or whatever it is, you cannot exceed 100, and I think it's 10% of the amount of electricity that you need or your demand over the course of a year. So on the residential properties, you're really only likely to see arrays that will serve that residence.
That's bang. I got to be honest with you. I don't like the idea of us being, allowing more of them to be put in town. I think they're going to become an issue. I think they're going to become a retail issue when a neighbor has them on his roof on one house, and like I say, you go on your back deck or you see these other structures that are industrial in sense that are in a residential area. It has nothing to do with industry, but it muddies up the waters on I think the resale of the house. Not only that, but the person that has to look at them. I mean, we talk about screening on the roofs of commercial buildings, on
Sure.
flat roofs of commercial buildings.
Yeah.
These can't be screened from someone who is above them. And many of the houses, whether you're up in your loft or whatever it might be, you're going to see them. And I just don't think that it's right in that type of residential atmosphere.
I understand your point.
Thank you.
John, did you receive the memo from Jay Kopstein? He provided comment.
I did.
Do you want to address any of the issues that were raised? He had some.
I believe, yes, I believe he raised he had two issues. One was under the large scale solar energy system definition.
Correct.
Where I spoke to you about, it says up to 1 megawatt AC on an area of land no larger than 10 acres. He suggested that that was supposed to be smaller. The point here is that you want to limit you're limiting the upper amount of what can go on a particular parcel. So, for instance, I will tell you that if you recall the Foothill property, that's a 2 megawatt, and that's on about 12 or so acres.
Right.
So to get 2 megawatts, you're going to need more than 20 acres. It's there to actually limit the largeness of what we can expect in town, and so that you don't get this huge, 30 acre, 5 megawatt, large array. So that's the point of that one.
Okay.
The other one was actually, it ended up as being part of a sentence that was inadvertently removed. I think that's been corrected.
Okay.
It said it was under the decommissioning.
Yeah.
And it said all applications for a solar farm shall be accompanied by a decommissioning plan to be implemented upon abandonment or cessation of activity or in conjunction with removal. And what it didn't have was of the facility prior to issuance of a building permit. It then went on to say the planning board in its sole discretion. That language was put back in.
So we're missing
Right, for the issuance of a building.
of the.
John, I have another question. Suppose that there is a fire or old house, someone wants to do the demolition, didn't pay the taxes or like that. So that will increase the value of the demolition because of all these materials in the solar cell, anything else could be an environmental issue.
I don't believe there's environmental issues, Vishnu. Obviously, if you have more stuff, the
next generation silicon, technology, maybe somebody else comes, and some metals are used in the contacts and everything else, the solder and all that. We don't know, what will be there, because if they have to do the demolition, they're not going to take it out of the solar panel separate. Just bulldozer, scrap and take it away,
That's probably correct. On a residential system, yes.
Want to comment on any of that?
When it comes to any kind of demolition or taking these kind of systems apart, there are companies that are popping up that are actually taking those panels because there is a huge aftermarket for them. While people say their life is 20, 25 years, some are still operating into their 30, 35th year. In certain cases, they're actually taking these panels, aggregating them, and then shipping them off to locations like opportunity zones within the U.S. or even into nations that are rebuilding or developing their electric grid. So in a demolition kind of... Go ahead.
Like a used car auto guy, take it out part.
Exactly. So these things are assets. And, again, I don't know the demolition business, but from what I do understand, A lot of people will do demo with the sole focus of taking the materials out of the building that they can and scrap those. And obviously a solar panel would probably be among the higher value items to probably rip off the roof, especially since they're not focused on, reinstalling anything on that property. So to address your concern, there are companies that are out there, they're growing, that actually have value for panels in a aftermarket kind of sense. And it is an emerging market.
There is something else, like a new generation of solar cell. Not only you produce electricity, but also you can heat it, water, the heat of the water, and then, you have hot water coming in. And is there anything we have to regulate? Because there will be a lot of plumbing involved in terms of, on the roof and like that. John, you have any comment on that one?
Those systems are now quite rare, to my knowledge.
We have in Yorktown, we already have somebody, he has hot water coming in, and then this is quite old, he has it. But actually, if you have a very high efficiency solar cell, and they have a concentrator, put it on the top or bottom, something, so they can go higher temperature and produce either higher power, and as well as you have a cooling to keep those cells doesn't overheat, and you do two good things: heat up the water and you produce electricity. Those cells are available now in the market.
Yeah, you can definitely purchase those kind of systems. They've been around for a while, or solar water heaters. Most people are actually switching to electric these days. So they'll use the electricity from the panels to run an electric water heater. And same thing with the HVAC kind of systems. When it comes to heating and cooling, people are starting to switch towards things like heat pumps, or more efficient furnaces and, AC units at that case. So everything is kind of moving towards just utilizing the raw electricity produced from the panels, as opposed to using solar energy directly to heat water, which, again, people have done it, but I haven't seen much adoption of those kind of systems at this point anymore.
Hey, John, I just had one question for you on the statement of purpose and intent. I remember having a meeting with the Westchester Land Trust about this, and remembering some of the comments that were received during the original public hearing last year. Does it make sense to put a bit of a roadmap in this section, outlining some of our preference of where we want to see these types of facilities? Does that make sense? I mean, specifically focusing on brownfields or parking lots, and on the bottom of that preferential list would be land that would require removal of trees.
Sure, you can do that. Other communities, as I understand it, have done similar statements at the beginning of their law.
That would provide a pretty clear roadmap, as they call it, right? A roadmap, what we prefer to see in proposed projects.
Yeah, it provides what the town board's intent is of what they are preferring to see. Doesn't exclude others, but certainly puts everyone in the development community on notice of where you would like to see those, and that's valuable.
Any thoughts from the other members of the board on that point?
Oh, I have another issue, like a historical building, or like for YCC building.
Excuse me, Councilman.
Is there requirement to put the solar cell, the building like that, or a town hall and like that?
We'll get back to that in a second. Can we just stay on the first issue, if we can?
I like I like that. I like the roadmap.
And Matt, repeat what you just went over. I want to.
Yeah, so I met with the Westchester Land Trust, and they had pitched it as a roadmap in a sense. And this is what we heard also from the folks over at IBM: is give us a roadmap. Tell us where you'd like to see these types of projects in almost like a hierarchy. And so I think it would be important for us as a town within the code to provide that roadmap. Identifying things like, we'd like to see. We wouldn't have an issue if they were on brownfields or parking lots. And basically run down, give a little bit of an outline of a hierarchy of preferential sites, understanding again that, we would, any proposal of that would require the removal of trees to be on the bottom of that hierarchy, for clear cutting or anything like that.
You know, one of the questions that I've been asked is by people who own farms. This is a way that they could earn money.
And we can add that. We can add, unutilized farmland as a preferential site. I just think it's important. Again, it's roadmaps, not roadblocks. So let's let people know who are interested in bringing these projects to the town, where we as a community would like to see them in a specifically in like a hierarchy of choices, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and as Alice was saying, some of the farms, they have, I don't know, I'm just going to use 10 acres. In that's back away from everything. It's totally shielded, but it gets a great amount of sunlight. There you go. You got a place where you can put it, like you said, a brownfield. And then your parking structures seem to be very popular, getting more popular, because that's open area and it provides a bit of shade for the cars and safety for the cars that are parked there, but yet generates enough power to get back into the grid in large parking lot areas and on the roofs of our flat structures.
Require the removal of existing trees. So correct. I think, it would be good to identify that as a preferential site. Again, roadmap, giving them the ideas of here's where we'd like to see these things happen. Not saying, to John's point, not saying they can't happen elsewhere, but our preference is here in these types of areas, right, John?
Yeah, I agree. A developer will search out those hierarchies, the top desired types of sites prior to any others.
And
that's what will be the effect.
And I'm curious from Swarnoff, if you don't mind chiming in, in your experience, would you find something like that beneficial?
Just looking at it from even a raw economics perspective, from a solar developer's standpoint, having to do less work to clear land, or even do any kind of pre-engineering, pre-construction work to get a panel up, is going to benefit them financially, and not to even mention the benefits to the town from an environmental front if we prioritize already developed areas.
Maybe in the final version, John, maybe we can include that in this section. I think, unless I don't hear any objections from the other members of the board.
I say the only part that I don't like is the above ground structures in residential area. That's the only thing.
Are you going to limit them in areas where people have large lots? I mean, like 4 and 5 acres?
No, it's, in other words, your developments now that are on 1/2 and 1 acre, let's say.
Okay, so
maybe we have to limit the amount of acreage that they're on in residential areas. In other words, somebody has a house on 1 acre, and then they have 10 other acres, and if they have a spot they want to clear out and put something, or if there's a clear spot that they can put it where it's not going to hamper people's enjoyment of their own property.
Okay.
I mean, let's face it. That's why people move to Yorktown, because we do have all this beautiful property. People want to move in and live in their tranquility, so to speak. And my opinion is that does not yield to that.
Warnoff, from your standpoint, do you see a high frequency of ground mount development in 1/2 acre lots?
It's infrequent at best, even in California. Most installers are going to look at the roof and they're going to prioritize that, just because once you get into the ground mount space, it's just additional engineering work. Usually you have to deal with the town again with additional permitting kind of efforts. So usually when you see a ground mounted system, you're talking about a larger property size, and someone's trying to get a decent enough 20-30 kW kind of solar system onto their property to cover all their energy needs. So rarely are you going to see it on a smaller acreage. So I doubt, and I say that with caution, that prohibiting something of this nature, a ground-mounted system in a smaller acreage kind of residential zone, would restrict development of solar systems in the town.
We already have one.
Yeah.
That I know of in a residential area, not to include the yeshiva, because that's semi-commercial. That's one you really can't see.
So we want to go up to what acreage? We want to take out the quarter acre, half acre, 1 acre.
I would say up to at least an acre.
Okay. John?
Well, what do you think, John?
If you're going to limit that, I would say that's the starting point, 1 acre.
Okay.
Thank you.
On that topic, to close it off, is there any benefit to potentially finding a way to design that into the course of the house? Meaning, if it's a deck canopy kind of thing, building a physical shed with panels on top, building a greenhouse in the backyard, would that be prohibited by a quote-unquote ground-mounted system if the structure is?
No.
Yeah.
No.
It wouldn't be considered ground mounted. It would be roof mounted. So that would be allowed.
Got it.
And if somebody has a wetland in his backyard and, it's a 2 acre land or something, is there any restriction that you can put, on the ground, the mounting?
Well, the restriction comes under the wetland law.
Yeah, it's going to go to
All right, very good. With that being said, a great conversation. We're going to move forward in this process. I'm going to entertain a motion for a public hearing to consider amending Chapter 300 by adding a solar energy system law to be reconvened on July 21st, 2020.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Pranav, and everyone who made a comment.
John Tegeter Day.
My pleasure.
Every day is John Tegeter Day.
It was pick on John Tegeter Day today.
John, great job.
On you tomorrow.
You've been doing a lot of work on this. I know that John really has been doing a lot of work on this, working with Smarnoff, working with a number of other individuals who have a lot of knowledge in this field. So we want to make sure that we get it done right. And John, thank you so much for your continued efforts on that.
My pleasure.
All right, we're behind, so we're gonna try to pick it up here. We have Sergio Esposito and Bruce Apar. Are they still on? Sergio? Hey, buddy. All right, Sergio, is Bruce joining us tonight? Do you know?
I don't think he is.
Okay, so this is a continuation. Before COVID, we were talking about an arts and culture committee. The Chamber of Commerce, unbeknownst to the town, recognized the need for it as well. And so on their own accord, created their own arts and culture committee. And so we're going to reconvene that conversation because I think it's important for us to fold the two together. So and obviously an arts and culture committee in the town of Yorktown brings so many benefits, so many ways. And so I wanted to reconvene that conversation about folding in the chamber and the town and seeing if we can get this Arts and Culture Committee off the ground and off running.
Yep. So a little background. We had already had our first meeting, and we had Bruce kind of like spearhead it for us because I think, who could be more appropriate for something like this than Bruce Apar? And so we actually had a very successful meeting. Bruce ended up getting, there must have been, I think Councilman Lackerman was in the room with us. There must have been, I know he was in the room with us. There must have been about, 20, 25 distinguished people in this kind of area. So it was very impressive. It was a great meeting. And then what we did was we came to you guys and we kind of introduced it. And I instantly got a lot of feedback on it, and just people approaching me, and everybody was pretty excited about it. And then Matt, we got together and we decided to kind of join forces on it. It only makes sense. The chamber is going to need the town's cooperation anyway, and really with the town behind it, what could be better. So I'm all for it. I did speak with my board, They're all for it. There really wasn't any pushback at all. They thought it was a great idea. And it's just another further continuance of the Yorktown Chamber of Commerce and working with the town of Yorktown to just better the community is really what it's all about.
May I ask Sergio, who's on your committee, and I'll explain why I'm asking after you tell me.
So we have, Bruce has the list of the people that want to be involved. And we kind of, we met, we got the list, everything was great. And then COVID hit. And so that kind of put the brakes on the whole thing. So I don't have a list in front of me. Bruce would probably be better at answering that question.
Okay. I'll explain why I asked you the question.
Right.
There are different people from the different arts in Yorktown, and one of them being dance. And there is this woman here who is quite famous, and dance is one of those things that I don't know, maybe because I just have so many subscriptions to places, but I think, are you willing to accept any new members to your committee?
Well, no, I think actually what we're going to talk about, Alice, is we're going to bring their committee and we're going to almost recreate in a sense, but in partnership with the chamber.
Okay.
Right?
Listen, absolutely. I definitely, I love the partnership. And the idea behind it, Alice, are we willing, ... The answer is yes, we're willing, ... So whatever it's going to take to make the town, to make this really something special for the town, something that we could actually bring this kind of culture back into the town. One of the ideas is to really utilize something that's been heavily underutilized for many years, the Yorktown stage.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, no, Alice. I mean, I'm with you 100%. This is nothing more or nothing less than the town really needs this. And the supervisor and I have spoken about it. We have a plan in place, and I'll defer to the supervisor to explain it.
With the board's approval.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's why we're here.
We want this to be a true partnership. So Sergio and I had discussed it. And I know Sergio brought it back to his board. So here's the proposal for this board to consider. It would be a dual co-chair. It would be co-chairs, one from the chamber, one from the town. 5 members in total, which is negotiable. 3 from the town and 2 from the chamber. The chamber continues its efforts on their end, and the town's able to provide and solicit and provide additional members as well. And I think it's a true partnership and marriage between the town and the chamber to get this off the ground.
And it would be a 7-member committee.
Yeah, you know what? I think this is so. The fact that we did that media presentation a few minutes ago. The way you get people excited again is by doing things like this. And I know some people who would be, I don't know if they want to volunteer. I'll call them, but we have some people in Yorktown who really could lend a name to your.
I love it, and I think I've heard and I've seen on social media. I've heard from residents. People I think they're really eager for something like this to happen because they recognize that it's a gap. And so if we can empower some of these incredible people in our community by forming this committee in partnership with the chamber, I think we can do some special things moving forward. And so that's the concept. And if the board is amenable, then we can proceed. We can have the town attorney craft the resolution for next week.
Okay.
Absolutely should.
Councilman Diana, any questions? Councilman Patel?
Okay.
Okay, great. Sergio, we're on, buddy. So we will direct Adam Rodriguez he'll draft the resolution and we'll prove it next week.
So Alice, just before I go, great. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. I'm excited about it. I think we really need this. But Alice, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Garden Club. I mean, The town looks absolutely.
Love my girls, right?
Oh
Aren't they?
my God! It's just
Great job.
it looks absolutely beautiful everywhere, and they work so hard. If I wasn't allergic to like everything, I'd help. But so I'll help in other ways, I guess. But
Well, you know what? I'm looking forward to us coming back together in town hall, and for us recognizing the people who, during this, even this hard period, they went out there and they volunteered, and it's beautiful.
So many people. And as a reminder, just real quick, if I can put the plug in for the Yorktown Strong signs that are in front of Town Hall and the library, go get your Sharpie, write them a note. It's a big thank you to all of our frontliners, first responders, grocery store workers, doctors, nurses. I said first responders. Maybe I said it twice. I'm already starting to get loopy. Sergio, good job. Thank you.
all right. Thank you, guys. Have a great night. All right.
Thanks, Sergio.
Next up, we're going to bring on Matt Darling, and we're going to welcome. There's Matt. Thank you for hanging in there with us, Matt. Appreciate it. And John Tegeter, Director of Planning. Matt is the VP of New England Retail and wanted to come to the board about an exciting project for the town of Yorktown. Matt, take it away. I think you're still muted. Hold on. I think you're still muted. If you don't mind unmuting for me. There you go.
How's that?
Perfect. Excellent.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for having me on tonight. So I am the preferred developer for Tractor Supply Company based out of Nashville. They have about 2,000 stores across the U.S., and they tasked me with finding them a location in Westchester County, specifically Yorktown. I've developed about 40 of their stores across New England and New York over the past 15, 16 years. So we've identified a site. It's the address of 76 Route 6 in Yorktown. It's pretty much the last property on the northeast corner of town. I would say it's a mile or so east of the mall, Yorktown Mall.
Is it near Whispering Pines?
Yeah, it's right next to it.
Yep. So it's a larger lot right now. I think it's 17 or 18 acres currently, and we are proposing to acquire about 5 of those acres. And I have a plan. I wish I was with you guys tonight. I have a plan. I don't think I can show it to you. I'm on my iPad now, but there is a potential. Maybe I can share it later. But anyway, so it's a 5-acre site that we're proposing to acquire. It'll be subject to a subdivision. The hurdle right now is that the site is zoned light industrial, which doesn't permit retail. And Tractor Supply is a retailer. It's an agricultural farm, hardware, supply store. And so we would need a zone change before I can get too far with that. And so I met with Matt and John, and we discussed some possibilities with that. And I believe it would be up to this board to authorize such a zone change that would permit a retail operation such as a Tractor Supply. So
it's wooded there, isn't it?
Sorry,
what?
It's mostly wooded there. The woods are there, and
Correct.
the forest is there, but it's mostly woods. Correct.
It's all wooded. It's all wooded.
It's all wooded.
Yeah. So why would? So that's industrial.
It's zoned light industrial.
Matt, can you? By the way, I just want to make it clear, though, Matt, you've been trying to acquire other sites for your store, including some vacant properties that are in town as well. Correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. And so since those proposals never came to fruition, now you're moving to this alternative. So I just want to make sure that your first stop was trying to fill some of the vacancies that are within the Heights or within the town.
Yes. Yeah, the big challenge with Tractor Supply is they have a very large fenced outdoor display area. It's about 15,000 square feet. It's almost equal to the size of the building that they require, which is 19,000 square feet. So, and then if you add in the trailer display area in the parking lot, which is 3,000 feet, and the sidewalk display, you almost have 20,000 feet of outdoor space. And so a lot of the vacancies in town are in underparked lots. And, which the parking lot would be the only conceivable area that you can put such a fenced area for outside display. And, with the parking situations being so, I'd say small in a lot of these vacancies, such as the Toys R Us, or the former Toys R Us, or the old Kmart area. Unless you were to take down part of the building, it just wouldn't work. And it's you know, the other side of it is maybe they can just do the whole thing inside. That doesn't work either because of the they just can't afford to pay the rents on a 40,000 square foot building, whereas their product is designed to be sold in a 20,000 square foot building. Let's just say that. So
can I ask you a question, Matt? Are you going to have a commercial tractor, or or this is a small tractor? People use in a small construction and not the big machine.
I don't think he understands.
Oh, the retail store, Councilman Patel.
Oh, okay, the small one. So you were looking on Route 6 next to that nursery, or what they call. There is always a big one tractor, repairing, and they are selling all kind of machines. So you are not that size. But you have a larger machine and a larger volume and a big area compared to that.
Can you explain to Councilman Patel the nature of your business?
Yeah. We don't sell tractors, Councilman Patel. They have like different supplies, clothing, chicken coop stuff.
Okay, all right.
Eating grain,
Yeah, we will not compete.
Florist.
We won't compete with a lawn and garden store.
No. I'm not saying you
I mean,
you don't seem any different than what they do. I just think you have a tractor on site.
No, but Matt, can you explain what Tractor Supply Company sells?
Yeah. So Tractor Supply sells everything but tractors.
Don't sell tractors?
No.
Yes. Animal feeds and all kind of other things. Oh, that's great.
What outdoor display do you have?
Yeah, so in the outdoor display, you'll find things like fencing materials, like even kayaks in the springtime. There'll be things like corral fencing for if you have a farm animal or a dog. It'd be a dog kennel out there. You could buy a dog kennel if you want to do something like that. There'll be some ladders and some troughs and bigger items that usually can't fit inside the store. They also sell, while they don't sell tractors, they do sell implements for tractors, like a brush hog that you can hitch onto the back of a small Kubota tractor or a small John Deere tractor.
But why would they name their company Tractor Supply?
Why would they name Tractor Supply?
Yeah.
Well, it started back in the 1930s. It started with like 3 stores out in the Midwest, and 100 years ago, they thought it was a good idea, and it just kind of stuck. And, they've grown to 2,000 stores today with a big headquarters out of Nashville. So they're doing something right. Maybe the name's wrong, but
kind of like a big Agway.
Exactly.
And that's what it's like. John, question on that lot up there. If I'm not mistaken, we had some questions on where they're looking to put the store a bunch of years ago. Isn't that area up there already subdivided, if I'm not mistaken, into one larger and 2 smaller lots?
No, it was going through a subdivision and a commercial site plan. It never got to the end. It got very close. So it actually has a very well-developed set of layouts and plans and all sorts of studies, but it never got over the finish line.
Okay.
So it's not subdivided, although the planning board is quite familiar with the property because of all the work they did on it with the applicant and owner.
Right.
But it's not subdivided yet.
I seem to remember. So I remembered something about that particular piece of property, and I think it was going to be subdivided. Was there about 20 acres up there, if I'm not mistaken?
Roughly. Yeah, you're right. It was going to be subdivided into 3 lots.
Right, like an 11, whatever the remainder of that would be.
Yep.
I know one was 5. Okay, I didn't think I was nuts.
No, you're absolutely on point with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Now you're going to buy one of the lots?
That's correct.
Okay. John, you had it in planning. Was it going to be subdivided for a warehouse or something like that?
It was going to be subdivided for warehouse type slash office slash contractors, garage and warehouse, things like that.
Okay.
Similar to what you see on Navajo Road and it can be similar to what you see on Front Street, but Front Street is a little prettier than Navajo Street.
Road, right. Any questions or concerns from the board?
So they will sell all the things needed for the farmers, the food for the animal feed and, like everything needed to the needs of all the local farmers and home growers, whatever they have.
Exactly.
We'll find you there, Vishnu, every weekend.
See, I'm a city girl. That's why I said tractors. They must sell tractors, okay?
When are you going to start building?
The horse season like that,
Okay.
Are there any animals going to be there on your backyard or something,
Well, yeah, if you have any, that'd be a great story. They do sell chickens in the springtime. Chicks, little baby chicks.
Tell my wife, she's been wanting to bring chickens home, and I keep.
There you go.
Calls them her COVID chicks, and I said,
you don't mean the marshmallow ones, right? You mean the real ones.
The real ones.
Hey, Matt, the dog trainer said she has trained chickens before. So.
Yeah.
Extra crispy or?
That's more my background.
Or original.
You can eat the chicks if you want to. You got to let them grow up a little bit, and then you can grow up.
That's going to be there buying a couple for Kelly.
Well, I'll tell you, it would be a nice addition to the town to have that. It would be a draw because, being an Okie from Travoki, that's where I go to those places, and they're a fun store. They really are.
And Matt, we don't have any. There would be the only store in Westchester County, correct?
Currently, yeah. Yep. I have no other plans for one at this point, unless something comes up. I mean, they can survive about 30 minutes from each other, and this location is about 30 minutes from Patterson, New York, which is their nearest store.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm doing another one. I have one right now under construction in Wappinger, New York, Wappinger Falls, which is about another 30 minutes north of Patterson, west of Patterson. So, yep.
Perfect. Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right, so I guess I'll go ahead and submit a formal application.
Unless the board has any, I don't think there's any objections from the board, but go ahead and proceed. And we're looking forward to welcoming you to Yorktown.
Great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Matt. Appreciate your patience tonight.
No problem. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, next we are going to welcome Catherine Fraze and Cindy Smith. Good evening. Sorry we're running a little behind. Excellent. Catherine, you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much. And I apologize for running late tonight. Diana, do we have Cindy with us by any chance? No?
I don't see her on yet.
Okay. So this is a conversation that we've had. This is born out of a conversation that we've had a few times. As we've highlighted quite a bit, our food pantries have really, I want to say, excelled during the COVID pandemic, providing just incredible services to our neighbors, and the need has really grown. And so I've been engaged in conversations with many of our food pantries. And we had a conversation with obviously Catherine and Cindy Smith from St. Mary's, and the idea of a food security task force was discussed. And I know the county's actually also engaged in this conversation, but I think it's important for the town to engage in a conversation about food security. And so Catherine and I and Cindy had a great conversation. Catherine, do you want to explain to the board some of the things that we discussed?
Sure, thank you. So as the supervisor highlighted, I think all the pantries around town, we have some new ones. There's a new one at the Korean Church on White Birch.
Right.
All of us have seen our volume increase by 2 or 3 or 4 times during the pandemic, and so we're all scrambling a little bit to cover that. But we have great support from the community, great support from local businesses, great support from our volunteers. But what I think we've started talking about is, leave aside the pandemic, there's probably more food insecurity in the town of Yorktown than most people are aware of. Mm-hmm. And we are probably all working very hard, but we're not necessarily working in a coordinated manner. And so we thought that we really should have 2 goals. One is to figure out ways to better serve those who are hungry in our community. The second is to raise awareness around the town that this is an issue in our community, that we are a blessed and prosperous community, but that doesn't mean that there aren't still a lot of families that are hungry. And families of all ages, working families, elderly, veterans, we see the need across the board. Mm-hmm. So we had a great conversation about putting together a task force, talked about who else we might include in that to really coordinate the approach around the town, and how we might pool the information and data that each of us already holds to try to get a more holistic view of what the need really is, so we have a better idea where to focus.
You know, it was funny because it's not funny, but we had a conversation as one of our Zoom updates during the height of the COVID crisis, focusing on our food pantries, and seeing the conversation that was had between yourself and Cindy, Dave Humphrey, who runs the Yorktown Food Pantry, who's been a great advocate. We had Faith Ann Butcher from the United Way join us, and the great work that they've done there, and just seeing the collaboration just in that brief conversation that we had, I thought was terrific. And so, building off of that, to your point, providing a forum or an avenue for our food pantries to coordinate and share information and best practices, I think could be very beneficial to the town and to those you serve. Also, just raising awareness within our community. I think it's so important on this. And it's not just food insecurity, but there's other things that go along with that. There's health issues. There's so many other social issues that I think we can dive into just by opening this one door, and to have your leadership and that of the Yorktown Food Pantries, who already do so much, I think would just be very beneficial to our residents. Questions from the board?
I totally agree with you, Matt. This is a very difficult problem in Yorktown, and I like to let people have their they're proud, and you want them to maintain that. But I've gotten to know people who we've helped over the years. I would love to work with you. I'm sure the president of my Rotary group would let me be a volunteer on your group, because I think people hear the word Yorktown and they automatically assume that we're very wealthy. And I always go, well, we're friendly, and we have a wealth of friendship, but not everyone has a wealth of money. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you're doing this, because it's so necessary. It's very necessary, particularly with the amount of seniors that we have. Mm-hmm. And some, it's for the working families who really don't earn a living wage, so it's difficult. I would like to help if I can.
Excellent. Any other members of the board? Any comments or questions for Catherine?
I know I've seen Cindy and Catherine out there directing traffic on a couple of Saturday mornings there. On my way going down Route 6 to get the people in and out. And I have to admit, it's quite orderly the way they get them in, get them out of there. It's impressive.
Well, Catherine's over at the First Presbyterian Church, right off of 132 and 202. Cindy Smith again is from St. Mary's, and we've also, like I said earlier, original conversation included Dave Humphrey. Dave Humphrey from the Yorktown Food Pantry that's run right out of the Capellini Center right here in town. And now we have another food pantry over by Wilkins. The Korean Church just started. So clearly there's a need. And so coordination and stronger together, as we've said before, and we say outside on our banners. And this is a great effort for the community to get behind. Councilman Lachman, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was curious. Couple things. One, how have donations been compared to have the donations increased? I know you have it must be exponential, the amount of people coming in now increasing.
So I guess I would make two comments. The first is really a shout out for Feeding Westchester.
Right.
They are a fabulous partner for us. And the whole Feeding America network, with help from the state, has made most of the food we get from them free.
Oh,
so they're shipping something like 1 million pounds of food out to the pantries of Westchester County every week. And I don't know how they're ever going to close their budget, but we are really grateful.
Absolutely.
On the donation side, it's been overwhelming. Financial donations, food donations, donations of all kinds. We're seeing about 3 times the level of donation we would in a normal year, which is wonderful and we need it. I think it may also be that people really want to be doing something.
Right, exactly.
And at the moment, it's hard to do something, right? Even in our own pantries, we're having to limit the number of volunteers in order to maintain safe distancing and that kind of stuff. And so people donate instead, and it's really been wonderful.
You know, it's so funny though, because that's one of the things, you know, when people came to me and started contacting my office, what can I do? What can I do? And I couldn't put people with people. And so I said, we got great food pantries. Go help one of the food pantries. Here's all the different things they need. And, you know, we're pushing First Presbyterian, St. Mary's, and people were, I mean, Lakeland, look at the Lakeland teachers, what they were doing up at St. Mary's. I mean, they put these incredible collections together. I mean, to your point, Catherine, people just wanted to help and they didn't know how. And the food pantries provided them a great way of accomplishing that. And I hope they continue to do so.
Well, Catherine, I'm famous for throwing like big beach ball, softball type questions out. So if I want to donate to the food pantry, what is the best way to do so?
So if you would like to donate financially, you go to the First Presbyterian Church website and you will find the food pantry and you'll find a click to donate electronically.
Okay.
If you wanted to donate food, so our Facebook page is always updated with what we most need, but I will tell you that breakfast cereal any day of any week we need. And there are bins both in front of the church on Route 202 and behind the church where the playground used to be for the preschool. So there are bins, you can drop off a donation anytime, any day, and we empty them regularly.
Excellent.
Now, I know you said Feeding Westchester has been able to get you stuff for free right now. When they revert back to a charge, as I know they do, but I think that isn't a monetary donation like a 4-to-1 value there?
It is. It is. The reason I mention both is because Feeding Westchester is a great source of volume. Excuse me 1 minute. It may not be a great source of variety. So, for example, I can't get breakfast cereal from Feeding Westchester. It doesn't matter whether it costs money or not. I just can't get it, right? So we really need both pieces.
Okay. And when you say breakfast cereal, is there any type of breakfast cereal? Is there something that's...
Anything. Anything.
I know our goddaughter is coming over this weekend. Well, actually, I think we're getting her tomorrow, so maybe we'll take her out shopping and have her drop off some cereals.
That would be wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Catherine,
I have a question. Can I say something?
Yes.
Hello.
Did we lose Catherine?
Oh, she's probably still here, is she?
I don't see her. Diana, do you see her on there?
I don't see her.
I don't see her. I apologize. Councilman Patel, what was your question? Hopefully I can answer.
Let me just say, you know, in Yorktown, the YCC, they have a thrift store. And because of this, you know, the COVID situation is closed down, and they sell knickknacks and, you know, they get a little money. And they have a food pantry downstairs in the basement. You know, some of our volunteers, they bags, you know, grocery bags for 4 or 6 times a year. And I don't know what's happening now because it goes down. But the First Presbyterian I'm very familiar with that because, we used to have a Boy Scout there for a long, long time.
Right.
And then recently I had a chance to go with I think it was the St. Mary's food pantry in a school and near in the Lakelands on Route 6 over there.
Yeah.
It was really nice, our current New York State Senator Harcum was there, and I didn't see him. But at the end, everything was gone, and it was really nice because we don't know how many people they go hungry. They go to sleep, and nobody should go to sleep hungry, really. So we should continue to support our local food pantry. There may be more than what you have mentioned over here. So this is really good. Because the Westchester County has it. And I would support it, and I'm doing these things for many, many years, many decades, I could say that. And it's really wonderful that there is a need today, no matter where you go, So thank you, Catherine and Cindy, both of you. Wonderful job,
And I see Cindy Smith just joined us. A quick hello, Cindy. We appreciate
Cindy.
it.
Hi, Supervisor. I apologize. I didn't see the invite.
No, not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. We had a great conversation with Catherine, and I think the board is very supportive of moving this forward. And we just really thank your efforts and all of St. Mary's for what they do for our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent.
I had given Catherine credit for the directing traffic at St. Mary's, and I've actually seen you out there directing the traffic.
Yes, my new job.
You should get the guy out there. You know what I'm talking about.
Very good. Well, Cindy, thanks so much for jumping on. I apologize for the late invitation. But again,
no worries.
All your work.
Thank you, and I'm sorry for being late.
Not a problem. You have a great night. Thanks so much. And thank you
Take
to Catherine
care.
as well. We
Bye-bye.
for their leadership on this.
Thanks, Cindy.
So we're coming down the home stretch here. We have our Parks and Rec Superintendent, Jim Moderano, jumping on, as well as Joe Falcone, the Parks and Rec Commission. We also have with us, once again, and Michael returning, our town engineer. This is in regards to the Valley Fields Par 3 golf course, and hopefully we have an exciting update for the town. Jim, would you want to take it away? Jim's out.
So before the town board, a little while back, can you guys hear me?
We got you, Jim.
Yep. So we had a little snafu with the DEC, but since this past week had put in the NOI that was needed for us. So we put in the NOI. They're just waiting for the town board signature to approve of the SWIP. So town engineer Mike Quinn had reviewed that, and he had a few items that he wanted to be touched up on, wrote up a memo, and they've already touched up on many of those items that Mike identified.
Mr. Quinn, you want to provide us an update from your standpoint?
Sure. The documents are pretty close to what we need to approve or sign off on so they could submit an NOI. So essentially, we have to send documentation to the DEC saying that we've reviewed and accepted their stormwater report and engineering design. So I did some documents were submitted yesterday. I did the review, went over with Jim. I wrote up the comments. They're relatively minor. So hopefully there's no issue on the other side, and they could submit a final set of documents that we could sign off on. And then we can submit the documentation to the DEC. Once we do that, I will follow up with them and make sure it's acceptable, because right now we have a cease and desist letter from the DEC, and our hope and expectation will be that once they've accepted the town sign off, that they'll remove that letter and then work can resume on the project.
Okay.
I feel like we need a ribbon cutting just to resume the work.
Unbelievable.
We've got Sean Murphy, I believe, on the phone. Shawnee, you there?
Yes, here, Matt.
Anything you want to add, Sean?
Nothing. I think, with the pandemic and all that stuff, I think going forward, I think we're in good shape. I think everybody's on board. And hopefully DEC, like you say, gives us the okay to get back to work and we can move this project forward.
Excellent. Excellent. And how about Mr. Falcone? I know you're going to be the first one to tee off.
Yeah, well, sounds good. We'll be the first foursome anyway.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Hopefully, yes. Let's get. I was there yesterday. And yeah, things look nice out there. He's trying to do the best he can, but I mean, he kind of dropped the ball. And I told him that again. You got to do what you have to do to get this thing going. And hopefully now we're on track. And let's move on.
So who's got the papers?
Papers, Mr. Quinn. Did you send back their papers with your comments, or are you still refining those comments?
He did. He sent a memo to me today. I forwarded that along to their team and their engineer, and I had gotten a response back. I'm not sure if Mike had seen their response.
Sorry, what was that, Councilwoman Roker?
Would like him to call the engineer tomorrow, because if we could file these papers by the end of the week, that would be wonderful.
That should be the goal. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very doable as well.
Excellent. So the goal is to get this filed by the end of the week.
Yes.
Correct.
This thing's been on my list every week for quite some time. I'm going to be excited when it's no longer there.
Mm-hmm. Me too, Supervisor.
The letter is removed.
Right, Joe?
Oh, yeah. Wow.
John, you want to add something? John Tegeter?
I just want to add a reminder that you need to finish your parking plan at the planning board as well.
Sean Murphy?
John, when can you get us on the next agenda?
I've been holding spots open all through COVID, so
Yes.
I will hold one for another meeting cycle. Yes, of course.
That's next meeting is in August.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Sean.
Sean, you're on,
Gotcha.
man. No pressure.
You
but
got
I'm
it.
watching you right now.
No, I'll come through.
Excellent.
No problem. Yeah, without a doubt. That'll be a priority on my list. Mr. Tedegar, I think maybe, I know there's still COVID, and if maybe you and I can sit down or go get a conversation going just so that you can keep me on mind exactly what we need to do over there.
John, you good with that?
Excellent. Yes. I
And if
appreciate
need any
that.
assistance, please feel free. I'm happy to be a part of it. I know you got some great resources here with Joe Falcone from the commission, and our town engineer, and of course Jim Moderano. And I do want to thank everybody for coming together on this very important project and actually getting it back off the ground. So it was a true team effort, and you all deserve a round of applause from the town board. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
End of the week. We expected it in.
Okay.
End of the
Yes, sir.
All right.
No problem.
All right.
Very good.
Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Mr.
you, everybody, again.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Matt, and again, thank the board. And I tell you, the town of Yorktown looks awesome in my eyes coming through this pandemic, the way everybody handled this whole situation.
Appreciate that.
Again, thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Take care. All right, Mr. Quinn.
Okay.
Alex Mill.
Alex Mill Sewer.
Adam Rodriguez, you on this? I need Adam Rodriguez. Make sure you're participating in this conversation. Thank you.
So I wanted to give an update to the board. When I last came to the board in January to give a little overview of the project, one of the key items we had to move forward was to execute or get the intermunicipal agreement with Westchester County resolved. So essentially, the project has a $10 million preliminary funding commitment from the DEP. Those funds are being held by Westchester County, and so we need to execute an IMA with the county to transfer those funds to Yorktown. Now, we originally had a meeting, I think, with the supervisor in March that was canceled due to COVID. So we really only recently re-engaged with the Westchester County Planning Department. And there's really, I guess they're trying to make sure that the conditions that we have to meet as part of our project are consistent with what other projects have done when they've received their $10 million commitments. And so the two items that the county mentioned One is they want to make sure that the town is committing some of their own funds, or the benefited owners are committing funds. So it's not just a $10 million project. It's a larger project where there's some shared skin in the game, if you will, from the municipality. Now, we have a $14.3 million project, so we checked that box.
I did push back on that with the county when they said that we needed more skin in the game, and I asked how many more millions is enough skin. So they did acquiesce on that particular point.
Yes, so we got to check there. But the second item is one that we need to talk about, or we need to kind of resolve. And the concern that the county has with our project as currently proposed is that we're going to be installing all the town sewers, roughly 5 miles worth of new sewer pipes, with the branch going to each property line, and then the homeowner would have to run it from the house to the property line. Now, for a gravity sewer line, that's a couple $1,000s. If it's a pump system, the costs are significantly higher, on the order of $15,000. We gave a range in our MAP plan report. And so the concern that the county planners have, and this is not a new concern, they've always had this concern, is that that people are not going to connect, that have to be on a pump system, which has to do with the low pressure sewers. And so they asked the town to consider, as part of our funding, to pay for the pumps that would be furnished to the homeowners that would be receiving a low pressure pump system. Now, according to the manufacturer's information that we got, we talked to the sales vendors. This goes back to when we were doing the MAP plan report. You're talking about $7,500 to $8,000 to buy the pump system, and roughly 1/3 at our planning level study, 1/3 of the parcels, I think 120 out of 315. We're going to be on a low pressure pump system. So, the town commitment in this regard would be almost $1 million if we were to furnish the pump systems. Now, when we put together the estimates for the project, I mean, our $14.3 million project budget right now does include a $2.5 million contingency. Now, when we're at the planning level, I think that's smart to have a large contingency. We're still hoping that we can keep this project, in that $14.3 million range. But obviously, if the town would be purchasing the pumps, that's another roughly ballpark figure of $1 million to get the county fully on board with what we want to do as part of this project for phase 1.
Michael, if I can just interject here just slightly, sure. More than slightly. The conversation with the county, and again, Adam, feel free to jump in at any point. The conversation with the county was more so that they wanted originally for us to provide some type of compensation to all the homeowners, whether they're on gravity or whether they are on low pressure. That was the first conversation that we had with them. And so the question becomes to the board, as we begin to formulate the terms with the county, which were not agreed upon before the petition went out originally. And I actually think we should take another step back, right, Councilwoman Roker? We should probably take another step back there. I'm trying to articulate my words here. We should have done this first when I was fresh. The issue of the Halleck's Mill sewer extension project. We are determined to put forward a comprehensive plan. I want to be very clear about this. And if you look at the timeline of that comprehensive plan, you're looking at roughly a 15 to 20 year project, full implementation, and that doesn't even start with funding of each phase. Right, Councilwoman Roker?
Yeah.
Just make sure I'm on track here.
Yeah.
So the county, so we need to, as Michael said, one of the things that we need to accomplish is terms with the county. We pushed back on the skin in the game comment, and we succeeded. The next question is, from their standpoint, they essentially want a guarantee from this municipality that if they're going to release $10 million to the town of Yorktown to lay pipe in the ground, that they are going to have each homeowner plug in. End of conversation. That's what the commitment they want is. Now, there is precedent in this up in Peach Lake, up in North Salem. When they did their sewers, they paid, the municipality included it, and they paid for each pump for each homeowner, and they rolled that into the overall cost of the project. One of the things that the county, we batted around with the county, was essentially some type of stipend, an equal stipend for all. Except the problem is, if you're getting a gravity, that's great. Your stipend cover the cost of the gravity. If you're getting a low pressure, you're only covering a third of the costs, and it's not really a fair. You're really picking winners and losers in that sense, and you're still asking people to pay north of $10,000 out of their pocket, and so which is a great concern from the county, and I echo that concern, quite frankly. I think that it's a very expensive proposition for people, especially in light of COVID, to be asked to pay $10,000 to $15,000 to install their pumps. So the question really that we need to get clarity from the board is, when we go back to the county to discuss terms, if we are comfortable providing option of having the town roll in the cost of the pumps for whether you're gravity or low pressure, rolling that into the total cost of the project. And I can say that my position is, what I'd love to see happen, and I'm not sure if we can accomplish this yet, but from my standpoint, if you're looking at the numbers, if we're willing to roll that in and increase our costs north of $1 million to accomplish this, I think we have to be very clear in the fact that we need to bond to cover the $10 million. They're not handing us a check for $10 million. That's a reimbursable on a monthly basis based on our expenses. So while it's a $14 million project, hypothetically, and we're saying that the county is going to, we have a $10 million pot, we are still bonding $14.3 million. It's almost like a double tax in my mind, because we're going to have the homeowner pay that back plus interest. So what I think we really need to try to accomplish, and this is why I think it's worth considering the payment for the pump, and again, I don't know if we're able to accomplish it, but my idea for the board to consider is to have, in exchange for payment of the pumps, to ask Westchester to be billed directly, and we shave $10 million off the bonding payment.
Okay.
Instead of bonding 14, you bond 4.
Okay.
That's what we're considering.
Okay, so may I say something right now?
Yes, Councilman Patel.
Each person who hook up or doesn't hook up, they have to pay something.
They will all pay something.
Okay.
They paid in their
They'll all pay. All 313 parcels would pay, because they have to pay. They have to pay off the bonding, and that's the thing. You're talking, Mike, correct me, 313 or 315, whatever the number is.
315. Yeah.
315. So my concern is, a $14 million bond paid by 313 people. I think that's a concern. And that still doesn't include, potentially, even though we have a $2.5 million contingency, it still doesn't include the cost of paying for the pumps, which is another $1 million plus. So now you're almost into the 15 range. So now we're going to have 315 people pay off a bond over 20 plus years of nearly $15 million. I mean, that's a hefty price tag, which we recognize. So my proposal, I guess, to the board to see if we can accomplish, and I don't know if we can, I'll be very honest about it, is if we are in agreement with the county to roll the total cost of the pumps in so that the costs are covered for the individual homeowner, that we try to convince the county that they should be billed the $10 million directly. And so that comes off the top of the bonding. So you're not done with 315 people in this instance.
That makes a lot of sense.
Who is telling that county cannot do it? Is it the county or a state?
County. It's the county planning department That is.
So why the issue came in now? I mean, was it known? Because I was not connected. Actually, this portion that whether you are living on the bottom of the hill or the top of the hill,
right.
And people think that I've been paying taxes all my life, I should get it free. I think it was a lollipop was given by some whatever reason 6-8 years ago that I can get free to the whole town for $40 million, and then it died down something, and I don't know. Are we going to lose this $10 million?
No, I want to be very clear on that. And I've spoken with the county. I've spoken with other supervisors in the east of Hudson. We are not losing the 10. They want us to spend the $10 million. They're begging us.
No, that's why I know that they want to beg it, and people want it. Those who are really desperate and they don't have a good soil and like that. So you cannot give $10 million to only few people and then use up all that. So that is a big problem. And at the same time, I want everybody to have the sewer, really, But how can you encourage or help them? That's a big problem.
The way we help them in the eyes of the county is to pay for the pumps. That's what the county feels.
Okay, so then when the next issue comes in somewhere else, how they are going to who is covered for this kind of thing for pump, whether you're on the bottom of the hill or top of the hill, whether you need it or not, it'll be added this kind of cost. Maybe the state do something to help us out because of this is all the watershed issue and big land, the old land, which has really whenever it was developed. There was not too many issues like this, and people didn't want to have a sewer. They were able to get around it.
Right.
How can we make this project work? That's the brain we're putting in now.
You only have You only have a finite amount of money that we
have. That's right. I know that.
And so I agree with you. The concern I have is what happens to phase 2 and 3, and where is that money coming from? The problem is that DEP won't negotiate with the east of Hudson. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. DEP won't negotiate with the east of Hudson, provide additional dollars until all of the original settlement money is spent down, which is the $10 million.
That's correct.
So we really need to spend what we have before we can go back to the table to renegotiate for phases 2 and 3, which is why I'm just being very honest with all of our homeowners. This is not a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year project. My son's going to be probably through college by the time this is truly completed. And I think we just need to be very honest and upfront so that folks at home understand the magnitude of what we're trying to accomplish. Now,
I think the county, Matthew, is right to request this. But again, I think when, ultimately the goal is to get our speedies permit increased.
Correct.
And obviously, doing this will help that happen.
Well,
go ahead. Can I just say something else here? How about we do half it now, whatever we have money, but still everybody has to contribute something. Otherwise, nobody will be able to cover later on without the more money.
We'll get right back to you, Councilman. Councilman Roker, why don't you finish your thought, please?
I forgot it because you stopped me in the middle of it. I love being stopped in the middle of a thought. Thanks.
You're talking about the speedies permit and
yeah, all of this is the appropriate thing to do because we might have been stopped at the comptroller's level. So again,
as well.
I think if I'm the county, I would do it. I would do this as well to get all of the stuff out of the reservoir, and I think we got to agree to do it and roll that cost into the bond.
Now, I just want to go back though because before we even, I think this is such a complicated web in a sense to get everything moving in the right direction. While we're negotiating that, if the board is amenable, and that's going to take a year, realistically. There are other items that we still need to accomplish. And one of the things, and Mr. Quinn, correct, I need your help on this. We've mentioned an I&I for Halleck's Mill in the past. my understanding is that in order for DEP to increase the Speedies permit, they're going to require an I&I for Halleck's Mill to be complete. Can you provide me any clarity or confirmation on this?
Yeah, I think that's accurate,
Okay.
Supervisor.
That's okay. Just hold on one second for me. So if we're going to be required to do an I&I study to increase the Speedies permit at the plant to get to the full 2.5 that we can hold at the plant, we're going to have to do an I&I study. So the question is, why not engage in an I&I study next year in a parallel track while working with the county to complete the terms, because we're going to have to do the I&I anyway to get the Speedies permit from DEP. And it puts us back at the table with DEP to see if there's extra money that we might be able to negotiate with them.
I think this looks like a better plan that DEP or DEC, anybody, can look at it and can understand that we're trying to do what is appropriate. The I&I will help us identify the areas where there is oversaturation or areas where there is too much going in. And then taking the septic systems, getting them out of the reservoir. I think that, that makes so much sense.
And I just think it's important that we're bringing, again, and it's very complicated. And so I just want to, I'm not trying to shortchange the folks at home and the residents who this will directly impact, but you hear the term parallel paths, but we're going to have like 4 parallel paths trying to get us to the point where we can finally break ground potentially on the first phase. But you can't. A lot of this is there's the way one of the great ways it's so many balls in the air. We really got to start putting them down and lining them up, and understanding how we're going to get to that finish line. Again, being very clear, that finish line is years away. Years away. Years away. So the question I go back to, Mr. Quinn, is so if the I&I study makes sense, the way I see it, right now we're wrapping up an I&I for Peekskill. And so basically we could just rinse and repeat that process for Halleck. Be out in the field in the spring, be wrapped up by the summer, right? For 21.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, the best time to do it is in the spring. So we could plan a project, in the next few months and, undertake it in the spring of 2021. And that would be a big check mark on our side that we've accomplished a big hurdle to get to the flow increase down the road.
And if there are any hot spots or trouble issues that are identified through the I&I, we then address those, again, with our focus on increasing the Speedies permit from.
That's correct. And I just also want to remind the board that we have the pump stations, right? We did the first 3. We have the next 4. We're hoping to kick off in the near future. Yep. That's 7. Yep. And there's a few others that we may put out a small project or do some of it in-house, but that would be a 2021 project as well.
Understood. But if we're serious about the Halleck's Mill sewer extension, you still need to get the I&I done before you start hooking up sewers. And you still need to get the I&I done to get DEP to lift the permit to give us greater capacity that we know that the plant's built for, but give us greater capacity at the plant.
Right, but for phase 1, 315 parcels, we have available capacity to get phase 1 underway, but to move into phase 2 and 3 and beyond, we have to get all those steps that you just mentioned.
I just think that it's important for us to come at this holistically.
Yes.
Comprehensive matter. I'm tired of the piecemealing, because the piecemealing is, I think, what's tripping us up, because we've got so many things that we're trying to accomplish simultaneously, some of which are prerequisite, B's prerequisite to A. I mean, so if we're going to have to do an I&I at any point in time anyway, I'd rather just do it all at once so that we can roll from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3. It puts us back at the table with DEP anyway.
Yes.
We can begin negotiating with them anyway for additional funds for phase 2 to phase 3, which is what I think Councilman Patel's concern is that you're going to blow through $10 million that they've got sitting there. You're not going to have any money for phase 2 or phase 3, which is a concern of mine as well. But we can't you can't go to that next round of funding until we spend the first round of funding.
And the other, it gives us time to go to their other sources of money for
There's a lot.
watershed projects. And, you know, to be able to bring a developed plan to whatever, wherever, I think it will get us some money.
And I also, just going back to your I&I point, though, you're really shortchanging the homeowners in phase 2 and phase 3 by not doing it up front.
Yeah.
Because it's only going to benefit phase 1, you know, which is, I understand. If you're in phase 1, congratulations. But as the board, we really need to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is you're going to shortchange the residents in phase 2 and phase 3 by not doing the I&I up front.
Yeah.
So just make it clear that if you are on the bottom of the hill, you need the pump. So then you can pump it up your sewer, and then it feeds the gravity wherever. Is this a half and half we have like that? Then we have to tell the truth whether you have to pay that money or it somehow you can get some kind of grant for something so everybody can get the benefit, because water is very important, and I'm very sure that the New York State is very concerned for the long term and the short term to have a reservoir available, potable water for the New York City and everybody else. So is there any way somehow can we twist it something somewhere else and start small project here and then tell everybody when you sell the house, you will get the money back in the long term. We got to do something like this,
right,
and then starting smaller amount.
Yes, Councilman, to your point, though, we have to get more specific. So we have the MAP plan, which answers your first part of your question, which already identifies how many roughly are going to be on pumps and gravity. But we have to dial deeper into that plan as one of the next steps to get more accurate numbers and statistics as to how many of those people are actually going to be on pumps and versus gravity. But I still think that's one of the.
There may be yet another part of the county's request for the people on low pressure. I don't know whether or not they've taken out their request for the generators.
Correct. That's
Michael?
it.
Well, we were going to talk about that in the next item with the low pressure sewer update to the town code.
Mm-hmm.
But we have had several discussions with the health department, and there's two choices. Either you need a permanently installed emergency generator,
Mm-hmm.
or you can put in like a holding tank that will hold an extra day of storage. So it's roughly a 500-gallon holding tank in the ground in lieu of a permanently installed emergency generator. If you do that with this, call it an extra 500-gallon holding tank in the ground, you still need like a portable, like on the control panel, there'll be a quick connect that you could connect a mobile generator. So that's the way the code is proposed to be written in our next discussion item.
Well, in that
But say something.
No, let me finish, Vishnu.
Okay.
There are, what did you say? How many hundred and what?
Well, 100, right now out of 315, I think there's 120. And that's at a very high level planning estimate, as the supervisor mentioned. I mean, we have a lot of data collection to be doing. We'll be going house to house at some point in the future to really like narrow down, if you will. But we didn't, at the planning level, we didn't want to tell anyone they might be on a pump system, or we didn't want to do it the other way. Say someone's going to be on gravity and then be a pump. So, pumps look like they'll be in the 30%, 25 to 30% range.
And how much?
But, can I just say something now, or you?
No, let Councilman Roker just finish, if you don't mind, Councilman.
How much would one of these tanks cost?
Well, we estimated like it was $15,000. That includes that everything.
Okay.
But it is today's
It's
money.
about $6,000 installed.
But let me just say something. Really, you just go. This is the next one. The low pressure thing, it is good for the new people, those who want to build house, you know, in a new development, okay? And they can afford or they want to live there, they have to have a sewer, they can do that. The problem here is the houses are smaller, and they say we are already been paying something before, and then 3% or 5% of the people come and go all the time. They sell it. I don't know whether, you know, they are ready to spend that much money. You know, they say, why should I spend the money? I'm going to move in a few years. How can we convince? You know, this is a difficult job.
We understand, Councilman, what we're saying is they may not have to spend that money.
I know.
No, hold on 1 second. We may not have to spend that money because the town would roll in the cost of the pumps into the overall bond for the project. That's what we're saying. So all they would have to do is call a plumber and electrician to literally just connect it. You're not going to have to pay for the pumps. That's the proposal from the county, that if the board is amenable to, we can begin negotiating back with the county. That's the point we're at.
So, you know, like $15,000 plus, you know, if it's more than 100 feet is whatever, plus all the other 10 million, how much more they will need it? $15,000 to $20,000 average to hook up the sewer from average.
Mr. Quinn, beyond the purchase and connection of the pump, which in this scenario would be paid for as part of the project, what other expenses would the homeowner incur, or Councilman Diana? I know you're versed in this as well. What would
I'll take a quick stab at it, but the homeowner would have to install the pump, so would have to excavate for the pump installed, which goes in the ground outside the house, and they would have to secure an electrician to, you know, run a new circuit from their electric panel to an outside circuit to set the control panel outside. And then they'd have to run a force main from the pump to the property line. So, you know, that's on the order of $5,000 to $7,000.
Not, you know, that's another problem.
Excuse me. Is that what they did at Peach Lake?
At the Peach Lake project included, everything was paid for by the town of North Salem.
That's what I thought. I just want to make sure we're clear on that. Thank you. What was that, Councilman Patel?
I think that's what they're going to ask us to do.
I know that's what they're going to ask us to do. They're trying to jam Peach Lake down our throats.
Right.
And have the every aspect of the installation, other than the electrician hooking it up to their panel, come in and have it rolled into the cost of the project.
So if the people knows today what we discuss here, that you will require, you know, either electrical supply for emergency, you know, the sewer processing from the low pressure area, and how many people will accept that they want to have the sewer now? Because before the 51%, we can get the bonding and everything else. And now if we have a less person, 1 or 2% less, we can do it.
Well, here's the thing. If the county is amenable to being billed directly, and we don't have to bond the extra $10 million against ourselves, which is exactly what we're doing, the petition would, I believe, would stand in that matter, because you're not going over the cost of the petition that was passed.
So how can we convince county then?
Excuse me?
How can we tell the county, please help us?
Well, that's what I'm asking. Is this is the conversation we're having. So if there's no objection from the board, then we will proceed, understanding that we believe that they're going to require us to pay for the pump and installation of said pumps, for gravity and for low pressure. Okay, but that we're going to plead, quite frankly, that they get their $10 million billed directly to them, and it's not lopped on top of the bonding that we would have to do.
That'll make it easier.
Excuse me?
That will make it easier for us, you know.
Yes, it would make it much easier for us. So that is where we are in this particular aspect of the project. So if there's no objection from the board for us to proceed in this manner, then the town attorney, the town engineer, and I will begin engaging the county almost immediately to see if we can get some conversations and movement on this. In the same time, again, that's going to take a year. We're going to be back here next year talking about the same thing, terms of the agreement. At the same time, I think that it's important for us to put the I&I study on our radar,
Right.
as an important step for 21. Because even if even if we didn't do the I&I study and you wanted to break ground, you couldn't because you're not going to have the terms agreed to because it's going to take, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, 8 months, 8 to 10, at least 10 months, if not a year, to get those terms agreed to with the county. Isn't that what we said?
It'll take a significant amount of time.
So might as well start the I&I next spring.
We need to get it ready to go out.
And that the freshwater and inlet bills that have come by. I know we've spoke at one point about there possibly being some money in there if we're getting the sewers in and getting rid of the.
You're talking about the local waterfront revitalization plan.
Yeah.
Correct. And that is very much something that we are interested in pursuing. The LaBerge Group will be with us on Thursday to discuss their needs assessment, and they did identify LWRPs both for not just Sparkle, but Osceola, Sparkle, and Mohegan.
What about Crystal Lake?
Well, Crystal Lake, we would be able to include that as well because it was already added to the inland waterway list.
Okay.
We would be able to do so. The short answer is it's a potential funding stream for us to help offset the costs for the sewers.
The only question I have with the whole thing is the maintenance. Let me back up one. The I&I study. Can we link that onto the I&I study we have now and just continue with it in the spring, or do we have to put it back out for RFP? And
because I can hear Pat Caparella, our comptroller, yelling in my ear. It's no, because it's a different sewer district.
Okay.
So we'd have to right.
And now the second question was, okay, let's say we can do this. Who's responsible for the care and maintenance? Would that be a homeowner agreement that would have to be cobbled out between the homeowner and the town, or the homeowner and the county? The pump goes. Who's now responsible for that? Are we, or is the county, or is the homeowner?
Well, I think that
segues nicely into our next discussion item.
Okay.
I hope it's normal. Like if my pump went out, I would have to pay for it. Well, no, I don't have a pump though. But if something, I'd have to pay for it.
Well, yeah, I agree with Adam. It segues nicely into our next topic item. But before we go, are there any objections from the board with what we're discussing? I just want to be very clear.
No.
I have some reservations and questions. A couple things I don't understand, because we have other areas in town that the people had to do their own stuff. Now we're giving this to them.
Well, it's honestly, it's because the county's changing the rules of engagement, and I don't.
Yeah.
Have a choice.
Once again, unfunded mandates that the county is shoving down our throats. Thank you very much.
That's exactly what it is.
You know, it's ridiculous. I mean, I have no words for what. I mean, it's just like the pump station. We just had to put another, what was it, $11,000 or $12,000 into to put a fence around that they approved at the last juncture that we didn't have to do. In a 10-state, what is it called, minimum or balance that isn't called for. And now they're making that now unfunded mandate. We have to pull more money out of our coffers to satisfy them. This is the problem I have with them.
Yep. Well, Westchester did get a bailout from the federal government. The town did not. We're still short in revenue. I'm just going to throw that on.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to our next item, Mr. Quinn, because it's segued in.
Okay.
Let's talk low pressure sewer code.
All right. So this is something that I had previously brought to the board with some basically a new section that will be added to the town code to address low pressure sewer systems. I just wanted to lead maybe with Tom, your concern. This code is written such that the private owner is responsible for everything on their side of the property. So even if the town were to furnish a pump, in the case of the pump, that discussion we just had, the owner is responsible for the operation, the maintenance, the repair, the replacement.
Okay.
So the town, and this lays it out, that there'll be a valve at the property line in the force main, and that's where the town responsibility starts. And then we would be responsible for everything in the streets, in the town right away, and everything else would be the responsibility of the private owner. We did discuss this exact concept with the Westchester County Health Department. Hopefully we'll get it from them in writing, because they've agreed to our concept. And like you said, they have changed their mind in the past. It's very frustrating. But we're working with the people that are making these decisions. So this is very consistent with what's been done in Newcastle and other places, Mount Kisco recently. So we feel like it's good. It's a good time with low pressure sewers being proposed on a subdivision, the recent subdivision Featherbed off of Jacob Road. Right. And this would kind of formalize this in the code.
And that's where they put the actual, the builder decided that he was going to put a generator in at each house.
Yep. And
just increase that to his.
Right. And this code says you can do that, or you can do the spare tank with tank holding for 1 day's capacity, and a hookup for a mobile generator.
Do you have to run this past the county?
Well, I'm assuming that they would get the referral.
Right.
So I've reviewed it with them informally, but I would like them to get this referral formally.
And we'll have our town clerk just make a note of that to make sure that she includes that in the referral.
So when the sewer, if the new sewer on this new law, homeowner can provide the pumping, and then we maintain that portion of the the sewer line. They're gonna pay the taxes to us to maintain their portion of the sewer line, because otherwise, if they don't pay and it goes to in a Peekskill area, and they collect the taxes, I don't know. Is there anything what we gain it as a town? It's gonna cost more money to maintain that portion of the line.
Well, we don't maintain their portion. They have to maintain their portion.
It goes wrong after their end and goes to the sewer line.
Right. I think if you're asking about once it comes into the town roads, the town would have responsibility. There are low pressure sewers in town currently. We have not experienced higher operation and maintenance costs as a result of those pipes in the town roads.
No, but if it is not in Halox Mill sewer, and if it is in a Peekskill, they are going to be paying taxes to the Peekskill sewer system, not Halox Mill. And these people are those who are living in somewhere else. I mean, they are paying the taxes over there, and if we have to do the maintaining that line, the town,
right,
then it's a problem,
I know what Councilman Patel is trying to get at, and it's a conversation that Councilman, you and I can have with Mr. Quinn and also our comptroller about.
Really?
But I think it's something that's been identified, so I
yes.
do know what you're talking about. In the matter, though, here, we're going to refer it out to we're going to include the county, but is there any other questions or concerns from the board before we take the next steps in the legislative process?
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay. So then I'm going to make a motion that we refer it out, and is our town clerk Quast? We said, what was the date we could do for the hearing? The 4th of August?
August 4th.
Okay, excellent. Then we'll make a motion to refer out to all necessary agencies and direct the clerk to advertise a public hearing on the low pressure sewer code amendments for August 4th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Quinn and Councilman Patel, please follow up with me on that issue you brought up, because I'd like to bring in our comptroller on that conversation as well. Mr. Quinn, can you go on to the WSP on-call service, please?
Okay. So the last 2 years, we've had a $10,000 on-call agreement with WSP, Charles Sells. And this is basically, we could call them when we need them. We pay their standard hourly rates, which would be part of the contract. In the past year, we've used them. One of the main things they've been doing for the last year is the DOT, which does inspections of culverts and some culverts and bridges in Yorktown, town-owned. They identified the Greenwood Street culvert as a red flag condition that required regular monitoring or repair. And so they go out there every quarter, and they do an inspection of the conditions there to make sure that the conditions aren't getting worse. So that's one of the ongoing tasks that they've had. We've also had them looking at like Strang Boulevard, that retaining wall, the Gabion wall that shifted. I think Dave and I had met with the board back in January about a couple of items that we were looking at in highway. So these are just basically a resource that we would have to help us troubleshoot issues as they arise.
Do you require periodic inspections?
Well, yeah, we do quarterly inspections on the Greenwood Street culvert. Beyond that, it's just when we call them, they would respond.
Mike,
Yes, Alice?
are you accumulating infrastructure, I don't know, issues? So we're hoping that somebody's gonna give some money for infrastructure, and we want to get on the front of the train. So if you guys are keeping a running tab on all of these infrastructure, like the Greenwood Street culvert, that's been red flagged for probably 10 years. And everything else that you have. Someone will come with some.
So yes, I'm happy to report, yes, we do keep that list. We actually have it in a priority order.
Excellent.
So we could start from number one and work down the list. I think what the, I guess the consultant is coming in a few days or something, but ultimately, I think there's a few things that we could do. Spend a few dollars to do some of the feasibility studies and cost estimates to kind of advance our projects from just an idea to something that we might be able to like actually get the funding for. But I guess that's probably for discussion for another day.
Yeah.
The shovel-ready projects obviously are important, so making sure that we understand what the budgetary needs are to move them to that next phase, I think, is an important conversation for us to have, and we can include our comptroller into that as well.
Now, just one point I wanted to make on this this agreement. I know back at the budget hearings back last fall, I did ask that we, maintain the $10,000, but that in the budget that I currently have in engineering, I did not have an allocation for this $10,000 to renew this agreement. So we would have to get this from town reserve or somewhere else because I don't have that in my budget.
Your budget that you can shift the dollars to?
Unfortunately, I don't. I just didn't get, as you know, Supervisor, we put a lot of projects off, but I didn't have budgeted funds this year in professional services that I could draw from.
And then in the year, I'm sorry, one more time though. In the subsequent years, have you maximized the $10,000 contract, or are you paying only a portion of it with the work that you need them to do? Can you give me a little more clarity on that?
Well, we've used. I just got a notification from WSP that they did an inspection last week, and that was the end of their $10,000. And the last agreement, was executed a year ago. So in the 1 year, we used the $10,000. In the first year, this was within the 1 year.
Well, usually you use that money. Every engineer use that money just for what you talked about.
Yeah, I think that they're wonderful. They're experts at what they do. I wouldn't have some of this expertise.
What is that?
My God.
Wait. Wake
No,
up,
I got nervous.
Councilman Diana.
My
Is that
God.
Diana? Where'd you go?
Phone because the battery. Okay.
All right. So, as you were
Yeah, I
saying,
know. I was just talking to the highway superintendent Paganelli, and we recently were contacted by the Shrub Oak Association Board, and they were concerned about a deteriorating bridge on Fenn Place. So I know, once we get this agreement in place, that's probably something that we would have them take a look at. If there's any follow-up that might need to be done there.
I think we need to have a conversation with our comptroller to figure out where the dollars are going to come from. So I would request the time to have that conversation with her. And then if we identify where we can transfer that money from, then we can bring it back to the board.
Yeah, I didn't even prepare the resolution yet, so that's fine.
Okay, very good. Any other questions from the board?
No.
Okay, then we'll thank you, Mr. Quinn. Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Good night, everybody.
We have two resolutions. We're going to authorize the supervisor to sign a letter to the Army Corps of Engineers in support of 408 Illington Road dam repair. Also authorize the supervisor to sign an intermunicipal agreement with the Yorktown Central School District for shared services, and authorize refuse and recycling coordinator to sign any documentation necessary to use Absolute Auctions to conduct a public auction of a 2008 Ford F-350 pickup truck.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And with that, I want to thank everyone for their time tonight. We had some great conversations. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
So
adjourn.
moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Have a great night, Yorktown. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, all.
Good night.